intros last week, I think. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. By the way, I wonder if I kept that intro. It cracks me up every time when Vash is crouching down in the back for like he's ducking for cover and there's nothing there, but that's just AI being weird. But hopefully they're having a nice night. So we got theme parking on Tuesday this week. So we're gonna go between Wednesday and Tuesday and see which one works better. So it's a little bit of an experiment here. But it is a nice Tuesday. And say hi to the chat here. We'll introduce everybody in the panel. We have some people waiting in here. We got John Make It Rain. We got Storybook Sorceress. We got Nicole Williams. What's up, Rogue Attraction? We also had Juliet with a £5. Am I right? Sterling pounds?
5 British pounds sterling. Thank you so much, Juliet.
That was close. Thank you, Juliet. We got Sean Norani. We got Cassandra in here. Rudio, Jake. What's up, everybody? We got Fort Misery Gaming. Welcome everybody to the show, and as everybody comes in here, we'll introduce everybody here. We got Mr. Orange Grove 55 as always. Thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you out here on the wild webs?
On the wild webs. No, it's an honor talking shop with you fine gentlemen. I want to thank everybody in the chat for taking time out of their Tuesday evening to hang out with us. But you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking a lot of theme parks, but we also do a lot of studio corporate talk. And this week, we got really some cool gaming stuff we're going to be discussing on OG55. So look out for that. But yeah, Orange Grove 55 on YouTube, also on Instagram, Orange Grove 55, and X, Orange Grove 55.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What type of gaming are you guys going to be talking about? Because I've been as I'm getting my stuff fixed, I'm kind of slowly getting back into the gaming sphere, but I've been out of it for like 6 months.
Fortnite, like Fortnite stuff.
Ooh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
See, Fortnite's one of those games you can just come back to it. Like I play with my daughter intermittently, and it's like it'll always get you back with like some sort of thing they have because they do a very good job with those collabs. Like when they bring in like Star Wars, or they bring in some sort of thing. I think they recently had He-Man. I think.
Oh, did that?
Looked pretty cool. But as always, we are of course as well joined by Mr. Vash Sky from the Vash Sky ParkCast. Vash, thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you?
The best place to find me is going to be at Vash Sky ParkCast. My goodness gracious, we just passed 8,000. It's wild to me. It's absolutely crazy. I just checked it. Trajectory is sky high right there, and I want to go ahead and thank each and every one of you out there and the fine folks like Jared, like OG, like Theme Park Conductor. Thank you so much for supporting me and making it possible. Very much appreciate that. You can join me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, which we're going to be talking about, Josh has got a little bit of a China problem on his hands. Should be a kind of a fun conversation going on around Shanghai Disneyland's Tencennial. But you can go ahead and join me there as well if you want to go ahead and hear more from me, of course. But come on, guys, we have a fantastic show here, and we got to represent accordingly. Theme Park Conductor, where can people find you?
Absolutely. And I want to thank these guys for all the love and support, especially Vash, OG, and Jared. Great, fine gentlemen. Love talking the theme parks. Love talking everything related to the theme parks. But you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, at Theme Park Conductor, on X, at Theme Conductor, TikTok, at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we have amazing guests like the one, the only Mr. Orange Go 55, Jared, our East Coast correspondent, Capture the Magic, and Mr. Vash Sky himself. All three of these gentlemen have been on that live stream and will continue to be on the live streams going forward. I want to thank everybody that has DM'd me on social media. As many of you probably don't know, I've been having off and on computer issues, so I'm using a temporary setup. But I do appreciate the love and support you guys give the theme park conductor and all these fine gentlemen. You guys are amazing.
Absolutely. And congrats again, Vash at 8. Yeah, we got conductor hitting 7,000, OGs climbing. I looked up the other day and I was almost at 20. I have honestly, you get to a point, I don't really check analytics that much, but I looked up, I'm close to 20, and I was like, oh,
congrats.
Okay. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like they honestly, like, it's funny with the subs. It's like, it's a nice number, but like it literally doesn't do. I mean, it's a vanity thing. I even talked about somebody YouTube one time. They're like, yeah, it's good to have, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily like equal, I guess, clout, more or less, you could say.
Yeah. I mean, and it's because you could have 1 million subscribers, right? But if only 5 people watch your content, that you might as well not have 1 million. So you have to have that balance where like you have the subs, but everyone's actively tuned into your content as well. That's the kind of balancing act, right?
Yeah, that's why I like doing live stream, because like you make videos and you got comments, but like it's fun to just interact with the chat and like just get that. I don't know, you get more personality on live streams too. So I had a couple of them message me and they're just like, your demeanor in the live streams versus videos is different. I'm like, well, yeah, it kind of like how that goes a lot of times, but it is what it is though. But by the way, when's the last time you guys watched the Indiana Jones trilogy? I heard there's 2 other movies, but I only recognize 3.
It's only really 3.
Yeah.
It's been about 2 or 3 years for me. I kind of did maybe like 2023. I did them again.
So this might be a hot take. Me and my wife and I rewatched all 3 of them the last week or so. I gotta say, Temple of Doom is such a strange outlier in those 3 movies. Like as we're watching, it's like I can't stand the woman in it. Like she's terrible. Like all she does is like scream and yell. It starts off with this musical number. It's weird. Like I don't know. Like as we're watching this, like I almost don't. I mean, I get it. It's Indiana Jones. It still has its moments. I'm just like, this is weird. This is very.
It was a dark time, George and Steven, they were both going through divorces at the time, right?
I think Spielberg's dad had died around that time too, I had heard.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. But it was a dark time for those guys, right? And so that's why you have a lot of darker elements in that. There's some really great scenes, though. Like, I actually like the opening number. It's, like, really unique. Wow. The thing I really like, though, is... when she comes in there, Willie, right? She comes in there screaming into the room that they just got out of, right? Or Willie like undid the latch or whatever. That whole scene leading up to that moment, and then the release of hey, let's get out of here, kind of thing, and that is so well cut together. If you notice, the editing is like perfect on that scene. Like tension. John Williams' score is absolutely fantastic. Like so. There are good things about Temple of Doom, but you're kind of right. Like, in the trilogy, I kind of rank it last.
Yeah, the tone is just, personally. I agree with you. It's like, I think if it probably in those movies, like, if you edit it differently, it's a different movie, maybe. It has really good moments, but then some of it, like, it's also strange that it was a prequel, but they didn't, like, openly say it was a prequel. So I can imagine in the 80s, if you're watching, you'd be like, well, when's this taking place? Because they introduced Short Round and you never see him again. Like, he's in that one movie and then he's just gone. You're like, what happened to Short Round? Like, maybe just got rid of him, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But man, The Last Crusade is so
good. Thank you.
Oh, so good. Like that movie is. We finished it last night. It's just like, oh gosh, Sean Connery. It's perfect. It's a great movie.
Amazing.
I can watch that 5 times a day, easy.
And by the way, I believe it was Friday, the 45th anniversary of the release of Raiders of the Lost Ark in the United States theaters. That's a pretty cool thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's the other ones. There's moments in Crystal Skull where I'm just like, okay, but Dial of Destiny, I couldn't get.
I think if you have to rank both of them, I think Crystal Skull is a lot better.
Oh, I agree. Out of those 2, undoubtedly, yeah.
I'm telling you right now, Dial of Destiny, I had to I couldn't even finish the movie all the way through. I stopped and played it multiple times throughout several days.
Yeah.
So it just lost my interest at certain points. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then how they did the AI. Oh my God.
Well, and I think that's a good way
God.
to judge a movie. Like when my wife and I are watching them, if it's a really good movie, like it's getting late and you need to go to bed, but you're like, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
But like with Dial of Destiny, it's like I'm looking for excuses to stop. It's just like, well, we can pause right here, right? Or it's just the opening credits. I'm like, it's fine. We can come back to this later. No big deal.
Well, I wonder too, like, because Indiana Jones is a big franchise, right? But it's so tied to Harrison. So
Yeah, it's a problem.
I mean, but Disney's also going to want to utilize his property going forward. So are they going to recast? Are they just going to do like animation and video games? I'm really curious the direction in which Disney goes with this stuff, because I want to see the franchise live on, but it's kind of a balancing act here, right? Like, how do you move forward without Harrison, or do you do AI Harrison? And that's a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you do AI Harrison, but you got to think of the origins of the Indiana Jones franchise, right? Steven Spielberg and George Lucas really originally wanted to do James Bond. This is kind of why James Bond comes into the franchise via Sean Connery in Last Crusade. But like that franchise, you always have kind of a new James Bond every, I guess, extended season, right? I think with Indiana Jones, you could get away with time applying the same treatment, but again, it had to be done competently.
Yeah, you have to like give it time and have like a really good trilogy that you want to do, like and really give it the thing. I mean, you could definitely do it. I think given enough time, and I think it'd be better than doing old indie. And I also like those period pieces. Like I still think it'd be a really cool idea to do a Batman movie based in like the 30s. Like you take the tech out of his hands, and it's just, like he still has some stuff, but it's more or less like him as a detective. I think stuff. I love period pieces like that. I think that could be really cool if they did that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, and the only issue too, though, is that James Bond has consistently had different actors playing that role. It's tough now with Indy though, because it's so ingrained, and they've never really,
Yeah.
It's not easy. Not easy moving past Sean Connery, right? But at some point, you just take the time and you just go, okay, well, we're going to do something a little bit different. And you just see what the audience actually says, whether they accept it or not. I think if you had a competent creative team, you could do it.
Yes.
But I don't know if that exists right now.
I think if they do decide to make another indie, I think Harrison Ford would be in it, but he would be more like the Sean Connery character of The Last Crusade. Like, he's in it, but he's not the main focal point. He's passing the baton. Because think about it. Crystal Skull, Shia LaBeouf was supposed to kind of take over. That's the storyline they were trying to lean into.
Right.
And there was that whole incident between him and Harrison. But I think if they did it with a different actor that is young enough that can handle the stress and the physical demand of the indie movies, I think they could do it.
I think who would have been great if he didn't pass away was River Phoenix.
Yes.
He would have been, because he literally did look like young Indy. Like he would have been perfect to like carry that mantle.
Yeah.
But, that's well, by the way, we do have a 5 from Ill Magic here. Thank you, Ill Magic. And he says, "Sup guys, just got in the live. I still haven't played the indie game yet. Is it worth it? How much would you guys rate it out of 5? Have you guys played the indie game, the new one?"
I haven't played it, but my good friend Mr. Webber has, and he loves it. So, and I trust him. He's a gamer, so he absolutely loved it.
I think it's pretty solid. I finished most. I didn't finish it all the way. It's kind of weird because it's first person. I think it would have been better as a third person game. But the story in it's actually pretty cool. You walk around the Vatican. You got like Vatican secrets, and you go to the pyramids. Like the story in it is actually really cool. And the voice actor, I think it's Troy Baker, sounds just like Indy. Like it's kind of crazy how much he sounds like Harrison Ford. So I think it's a solid game. I'd say out of 5, I'd probably give it like a 4. I think it's fun to go in there and play it, especially if you're wanting more Indiana Jones. It's actually kind of a throwback and pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. Now, John Make It Rain is asking Vash and I if we're sitting in an angle. I don't know. I'm just sitting in a chair, John. I don't really know. I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm just sitting in a chair. That's all I'm doing.
I stand, so I don't sit, but I'm facing directly towards the teleprompter. So
you guys are just gonna get a crotch view.
but no, I'll friend of the channel, Lauren Connor. So obviously, if you know the Pro Network, you know the name. Obviously, big fan. Obviously, amazing resource when it comes to anything Lucasfilm or even LucasArts for that matter. And he was raving about it. So if an indie fan like that, they can win him over, I think it's kind of worth checking out. That's for sure. And OG, I believe you were going to say something before the super chat came in here. I didn't want to go ahead and derail your point. Remember what that was?
I don't. That's okay.
My bad.
That is okay. No worries at all.
That's how my brain goes. I remember things like a day later. I'm like, that was a good point I was going to make. And then it just left my brain. I feel like my thoughts in my brain come in and they sit there for like 2 seconds. They're like, okay, no, then go. And then they just leave. And you're just like, what? I didn't have time. Then it's just gone. But all right, let's get into our first topic we have this evening, which it's got the interwebs in a hubbub out there that I've seen. And that's the fact that Disney has made a change, at least at Disney World. Disney Springs is going to implement permanent bus and watercraft restrictions for non-resort guests starting next week. So they do this periodically during busy times where they restrict this. They did this recently. I think maybe around spring break, they had this. It was like a week and then they kind of let it go. There was some speculation there. Were they going to look at making this permanent? And it says here, starting June 28th, guests without a confirmed resort hotel stay, dining reservation, or experience reservation will not be allowed to utilize resort transportation at Disney Springs. This is a permanent policy change following prior testing of the restriction during peak times. Now, one thing I will add to this, I believe you can have I think this is pretty accurate. If you have a reservation at any resort, you are able to use the bus transportation. It doesn't have to be specifically the one you are trying to get on a bus to go to. I think now I'm curious what you guys think about this. Part of me thinks that one of the reasons this has kind of caught a lot of traction is people look at this as the entry point to more restrictions on transportation around Disney World property. What do you guys think about this?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, OG.
Oh, sorry, bro. No, I was just going to say, I think it's to incentivize like staying on property. I mean, if it's limited to resort guests, I mean, I think it's to incentivize that for sure. It's right. Go ahead, Vash.
It's certainly the maintaining of the bubble, right? And we saw that open up just a little bit when Disney changed its policy regarding Magical Express. Right now, people are more incentivized to actually use Uber or alternative forms of transportation in order to get to, whether it be Walt Disney World or maybe another resort, right? And so with the opening up of competition, with the opening up of resorts around Walt Disney World property, now those amenities that used to be, open widely because so many people were actually staying on property, well, maybe that mindset has kind of shifted. And also, too, theme park parking has gone up considerably, right? And so we've seen maybe more people, step on social media and figure out, oh, hey, I can go ahead and park at the orange lot and have free transportation to the actual parks themselves. Now, there's no direct access from Disney Springs to the parks, but you can resort hop in order to do that, and there you go. I think Jared is exactly right in when he says that this is going to open up more restrictions, because I think the fallout from this is going to be, I can make a reservation at a resort, right, and either cancel it, move it, or make it, and maybe, park in the resort parking lot. And so I think you're going to maybe see a shift where it's like, if you want to go ahead and park at the resort parking lot, maybe there's a charge for that because obviously the usage there might increase as a result of this. When I'm thinking about why Disney may have done this, to be honestly, I think Jared makes some great points and OG makes some great points. But I think the bigger issue for Disney is labor. We just saw those solar powered, electric trash cans that they just added, right? One of the big reasons that they may have done that, at the tune of $10 million plus, is to actually reduce, custodial staff members. And we know that that bus drivers, right, have been a big pain pain point, let's say, for Disney, especially coming off of the pandemic and all of those related effects and everything like that. And so if we can actually reduce traffic, if we can reduce headcount with those operators, well then, it's all that and more. So when it comes to providing a service, right, that's going to cost them money, implementing a change that might make them money, I think is where their head's at right now.
Well said.
Yeah. What do you think, Conductor?
So this is kind of where I'm taking it from. Vash makes a great point, and OG, you make a great point. All you guys make a great point. Is prices are increasing for the parking at the parks. So from my point of view, people are parking at Disney Springs at the orange lot. Then they're hopping on transportation to go to the parks. Yeah, it's not direct access, but it's close enough where they can go from transportation to get to one of the parks. And they're avoiding the cost of paying for parking. And I think Disney caught on to that. And they're like, nope, you guys aren't doing that. So now we're going to sit there and restrict it for all. And quite frankly, we've seen this time and time again with the parks, with what Disney used to offer. Now they don't offer it, all because of guests or people in general just taking advantage. And it gets to a point where it becomes a major problem. And, Disney has to take it away. Like someone said the other day when the story broke, that people that are staying on property are having to wait way too long to get on these buses, and having
the watercraft as well.
Yes, yeah. and that. So you have people paying to stay in the Disney bubble compared to people that just live outside the Disney bubble and are coming in to park at a free parking lot and not pay the fees of the parking at the parks to take free transportation that's actually meant for people that are staying in the bubble.
Well, and here's one. Oh, go ahead, Conductor. Finish your point, and I'll.
Well, no. I was just going to say, this is the continuous behavior we keep seeing time and time again, and then people wonder why Disney, Universal, other corporations, they pull back on a lot of offerings they might have offered at one point or another, but because people take advantage of it and eventually the company has to respond to that, it ruins it for everyone else.
Yeah, and here is one thing where this is where the blessing of size works against Walt Disney World. Because out here in California, we don't got to worry about any of this bus nonsense. We can walk from the Grand Cali to both parks, the Disneyland Hotel. It's all walking. You know what I'm saying? This is where I think the blessing of size is definitely a blessing. Like when you're talking about expansions and things like that, Walt Disney World doesn't have to worry about the Hojo across the street or anything like that. But they do have, there's a lot of logistical stuff like this that becomes a major, major headache. So.
Well, I view this as kind of multi-pronged. So to give you a little info, my dad used to drive a bus for Disney. So I actually kind of have a stupid amount of knowledge about that whole thing, which that is a whole thing you go in about. He was furloughed during COVID. He never went back, but he did drive a bus there for a bit. I think I agree with you guys. Part of this is there's a lot more people at these resorts now. Like my wife and I, we went over to Poly and some other places. And I even had this thing, like when they added that tower to Poly, that was going to make Poly insanely busier than it already was.
Right.
And I think part of it is cutting down on foot traffic at these resorts so that people that are actually paying to stay there actually have, access to the amenities and things like that. I think that's part of it. I think part of it is cutting off loopholes. This goes in. We've seen Disney do this 1,000 times. When there's something people are going to exploit, it gets enough critical mass, and then they come in and squash it. Right? They do this constantly. The other one sticks out to me. And we heard, Drew talk about last week about Disney optimizing things. And especially ever since they now charge for fast passes, I've always said nothing's really off the table what they might charge for. So I think this you could look at as an entry point of like, oh, it starts here, but is it unfeasible to say that at some point Disney wants to optimize and monetize the bus transportation system, which essentially is a cost to them? I mean, it is it's part of the overall offerings, but they like seeing things directly tied to a product. Do you maybe see a bus pass? Do you maybe see like, I don't think it's impossible that at some time down the line we do see this, maybe not for resort guests, but for day guests to be able to use some of this transportation. It's an extra charge because that would go. I think that's why a lot of people are kind of having the reaction they are having to this, because it really, if you look at it, like it's not a huge thing necessarily, especially if you're staying on property, but if like you're a local, that does impact the way that you're able to go around these places. And Disney has promoted or resort hopping before. So that is kind of interesting, but I think it's a possibility you could see them slowly implement things to be able to optimize or monetize the transportation system at Disney World.
Well, and the other thing too that we have to remember is that Walt Disney World is primarily a tourist destination. Mm-hmm. So Disney's probably looking at this going, the majority of people that come to Walt Disney World are usually staying at Disney properties and what have you. So this doesn't impact the vast majority of guests, right? Like the locals are a thing for sure. They have APs and everything else, but not to the degree like a Disneyland resort does. So Disney's really like catering to like the bread and butter, like the tourists who stay on property, and like they're catering to that because there isn't a huge locals market anyways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I'll disagree slightly in that I believe I remember seeing the statistic, and I'll go ahead and check, but I believe 60% of people who are actually on Walt Disney World property are actually not staying on Walt Disney World property. So that's kind of the different mix there. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily locals. I think locals only represent about 25%. But I think the majority of people that are on property aren't, maybe necessarily take advantage of some of these, amenities, really. And Jared, I think, makes a compelling point in that you could actually start to charge for those if, in fact, you're seeing places or destinations that are more high traffic than others. It's really kind of interesting because previously you would have thought, oh, okay, well, we'll go ahead and add more buses onto the line in order to deal with traffic and so forth. I don't think they're necessarily in that mentality anymore. I think they're shifting it a little bit. And Jared makes a great point actually about the additions of these DVC locations, right? Because I've seen that, like, I think the Lake Shore Lodge, is that what it's called right there, and the Polynesian Tower, they don't really have amenities of their own. They're kind of relying on the amenities of their nearby resorts, that being the Polynesian and Fort Wilderness. And that's going to be causing a lot of additional traffic. I know people have been complaining about Captain Cook's, for example, at the Polynesian. Now that the tower is right next door, that's hundreds of more people that have to serve that destination that was only really intended for that resort and maybe, a little bit more. So, like, because of that, it's like, well, we got to cut down on that traffic. We got to cut down on, how many people might be resort hopping to this to begin with. And so I think it is kind of multi-pronged in that way. It's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, and I probably would have said, I think this conversation is very different. This was something that happened pre-COVID before they started charging, like a lot of the big changes that have happened. And now that those have happened, maybe it's I don't know. I'm not a black pillar by any means on anything, but maybe this is a little bit of like, oh, what are they going to do now sort of thing. I just don't think it is out of the realm of possibility that they eventually go down this path. Because if you look at it, like, I would love to know how much it actually costs them per year to run the buses, to run the monorails, to run the Skyliner. Like, that's a significant cost that if you look at it on a spreadsheet, it's like the Magical Express. Well, it's like, well, there's no direct ROI on this, even though it fits into the overall offering. And I think you can make a really good argument that when you're talking about Disney World, there's so many of the different ingredients, probably Disneyland as well, so many of the different ingredients that go into what make an experience there. You can't really nail down to a single thing, but I could totally see in a boardroom just looking at this cost and being like, well, is there a way that we could at least break even on this? And that's where this conversation starts. And maybe they don't go further. Maybe this is actually just to, reduce the amount of, I don't know if Disney would call it freeloader traffic, but whatever they would deem it as, of saying, well, these people, and I agree. I think Jacob, Georgie made a good point earlier that's saying, like, well, don't these people buy, merchandise? They buy food. I think they do. I think most people probably do, but that doesn't necessarily, they wouldn't see that. And part of me wonders how much of this is spreadsheet management, how much of this is actually the a problem they see that they're trying to resolve in some way, or how much of this is, okay, let's start with step one, and it's a 5-step plan to get where you want to go. Kind of like we've seen with park prices. I've felt all along they have a price point they want to get to. I would love to know what that is. And you could say the same thing when they did, fast passes, charge for those. Now those are lightning lanes. Like, I think this is a pretty consistent pattern we've seen with Disney. And so I don't think it's conspiratorial to even remotely say, like, they might do this. Maybe it's free for if you're an AP hotel guest. Maybe if you just buy a day ticket, you got to buy an extra park or a bus pass or something, a transportation pass to be able to use it.
Well, I'm going to say this, Jared. When you ask the question, how much Disney is spending on the monorail, on the Skyway, on the buses per year, I'm more curious, besides that, how much of that are they writing off? Because you would have to imagine they're writing a lot of that off. They're getting incentives to provide that transportation. They're not paying the 100% cost per year on that transportation. They're paying a significant amount, but I would have to think that they're getting some type of kickback somewhere and somehow.
I'm sure in some way you could write a lot of that off on taxes, would be my guess. I'm not really sure. I don't know enough about that to know, but I would imagine maybe.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because when you look at the monorail system, we've all reported on it one time or another recently that the monorail system, at least out in Walt Disney World, is very old, and it's falling apart. There's issues with it. There's it costs a lot to sit there and expand it because you have to do special foundation work to put in new track, new supports. There's all these other things. You have to think about it. If Disney was not getting any type of kickback or tax write-off on transportation, especially with diesel for the buses, the electricity for the monorails, do you really think Disney would keep that stuff around and not cut it off?
Well, that's a good question. Good question. I mean, it's kind of become a staple of Walt Disney World.
Sure.
And that's kind of the greater offering. By the way, I asked Grok just for a broad thing here. Its guess here is in the annual transportation cost for Walt Disney World. It's in the range of $150 to $400 million a year. Wow.
Yeah, I think it would have to be, because the amount of buses that actually, go through each one of these resorts, each one of these distinct destinations, each one of the water parks and so forth, in order to facilitate that much traffic, which is, at any one time, it's going to be anywhere between 200,000, maybe even more people on property per day. You would need a significant amount of costs associated with the maintenance of those buses, the bus drivers themselves, the boats, the monorails, as conductor just beautifully pointed out right there, the new Skyliner now. I would think that there would be considerable costs associated with it, and they might just be looking at it like you said, Jared, where it's just like, okay, well, this is not going to be a loss leader for us anymore. And we're seeing, some shifts in mindset in other ways. Oh, gee, back me up here, right? Remember back in the day? Way back in the day, right? Remember the Esplanade? They used to actually have the fireworks music that used to play out there way back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, they stopped it, right? Because you had so many people, annual pass holders, freeloaders, who knows, sitting in there and taking advantage of the fireworks viewing that you could actually see from the Esplanade over there at Disneyland Resort. Now, obviously it's no longer encouraged the same way that maybe it might be. But we're seeing, like, the Contemporary, for example. Jared, we covered that story where they're adding gates, right, to the fireworks viewing location. That's a mindset difference. It's a cultural difference, or at least the example of one that might be shifting here when it comes to Walt Disney World Resort. And it's not just happening at Disney. Even Universal's getting in on this game. I think a minor story came out, relatively minor, suggesting that the kind of free parking option, right, that used to be after midnight for special events at, like, Halloween Horror Nights, for example, at Universal Studios Florida, right? There was like I guess you could get in for free. Without having to pay the parking fee after a certain point. I believe that point was midnight. Now that's changing recently. And so you're seeing some of these loopholes, as they call them, start, being taken away. As I think Disney, Universal, and others, these theme park proprietors become more mindful about the costs that it takes to actually run their destinations.
It's a really good point. Actually, I thought of that from when we talked about that with the Contemporary, and we had basically said how they're probably going to start going in here and shoring up all these, maybe they call them revenue gaps, where it's like, oh, we haven't monetized this. Let's monetize this. Let's do a party up here. Let's do this. By the way, I did ask Rock as well, if Disney charged for bus transportation, how much might they charge to basically break even on that cost? And they said realistic price point, this would be anywhere from $5 to $12 per person per day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's unfeasible if they came out and said it's going to cost you $5 per person per day as part of a vacation package to use the buses.
100%.
I think the only reason why they might not have yet is only because they don't have really a hub or someplace to, monetize that effectively, right? Or to get a ticket or whatever. Go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, and this is what drives me kind of crazy about these big corporations. You could just make this part of like the customer doesn't have to know. It's like a resort fee. You don't have to tell me. Just build it into the price. Internally, they're like, yeah, we're charging $10 per person for the bus transportation. That simplifies it, and nobody ever knows the difference. When you start piecing this stuff out because you want it to show up as a revenue stream, I think that's where this starts, especially, and we'll talk about this later, the wait times of both Disney and Universal are really low right now. And the summers have been a struggle point for these parks ever since COVID. Do they really start really trying to find more revenue? Because if they're worried about the attendance coming in, they don't want to show down quarters. You might see both of these places really start doing this, because the last thing that neither one of them want is to show a down quarter. I think it's part of this.
Yeah, and you know what too? You're absolutely correct, Jared. Lumping it in with your resort vacation package is the way to go for Disney, because a lot of people, it's all in the mix. Then you don't notice it as much as if it's a separate charge, like completely separate from your, so you're absolutely right. And that's how they'll do it. They'll sneak it in, right? They'll sneak it in. You won't even at $5, you won't even notice it. Most people don't pay attention enough with that stuff, right? Go ahead, Vash.
You see, and here's the thing. I think this was baked into the price. We just maybe didn't see it, right? And so if it's a separate line item, now obviously that takes additional precedent. And it's something that, when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, yeah, this was factored into the price. But should the 40% be subsidizing the 60%? Right. And so it's like, okay, well, now we're going to have a cutoff, and maybe we actually add a charge onto the bill or the stay of anybody actually staying at Walt Disney World Resort, which mandates that we have to actually enforce, basically Magic Band only exclusive access for these transportation options. You don't want to end up like a maybe what do they call those guys? Those like in New York City, for example, the subways, how they jump the line right there.
Jumpers.
Right. You don't want that to happen. So you're going to need a certain level of enforcement in order to ensure that you can actually do that effectively. I don't know what that actually looks like, but to your point, OG, Jared, I think we're kind of moving down this line here. I think we're moving in this direction slowly, and this might be the first stop in a multi-point plan, which it kind of has to be, because I think there will be effects from this, like an increase in resort parking, for example, that will be a consequence of this.
Yeah. And they could also charge. I mean, I've actually been shocked over the years for people that I've never had much issue with it. Maybe I know how to schmooze the security people. But like when you're like, hey, we're gonna come in here and get a drink at the bar, and oh yeah, sure, go park, whatever. Like some resorts, it's easier to do than other ones. The busy resorts are gonna tell you no unless you have a reservation. I wouldn't be shocked either if at some point you can do that, but you're gonna have to pay $5 to park, or some minimal fee to park at these places to do that. Right. And I think what's interesting, the only thing that gives me hesitation on this is the fact that Disney was charging for resort parking when you're staying at the hotels, then they actually took it away, which is rare that you ever see that. So I suppose there is some precedent that maybe they won't do that. But again, when you look at the cost of go ahead, Vash.
Well, no, I just wanted to go ahead and add to that point because I think that's really relevant right here. The parking fee that used to be on for resort guests. Remember, that was a Chapek era policy. Then when Chapek was out, remember Bob Iger went to Josh Giamaro and said, hey, or allegedly anyway, at least as according to the executives who were supposedly part of this meeting, they went, okay, how can we reduce maybe friction points or things that maybe people don't like about the parks and its current design framework and what people are having to endure in order to go to these parks. And it was from that meeting that these things, that the parking fee for resort guests was alleviated. Right. And I do wonder if Josh Giamaro forwarded that. So suppose if that's the case, then I think you're right. I think for right now, a parking resort fee is off the table. But that doesn't mean it's off the table for everybody else.
Well, right. And the other thing too, I think we have to remember is, and Vash, you always say, you know, the levers, right? Pulling the levers. You kind of shown with your point there, which is, I completely agree that Disney will adjust based on the situation on the ground, right? So if they feel they're getting a pullback from the guests, or they feel like they're not making as much money as they were, pre-lever, they'll pull another lever and adjust it. So none of this stuff that we see, like these charges or whatever, are ever 100% permanent, because we've seen over time they have reverse stuff. So they're going to play with it and they're going to see what works and what doesn't. And if it doesn't work, they'll go back to the old way. If it does work, they'll keep it, so.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
Yeah, I think it is quite interesting. And a Storybook Source just had a funny comment about, where did it go? It rained on me. Here it is. Sounds like someone brought Chapek back to manage that spreadsheet. I mean, hey, maybe he's doing a little consulting work on the side with the spreadsheets. That's what he loves. He loves the spreadsheet. So maybe, although part of me
being the ally that you needed me to be.
Yes,
that plays on the buses when you're going. There, people are mad about paying the fees, and it's like, listen, guys, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Part of me thinks, I mean, as Disney and these other companies they utilize AI more and more, I could totally see you say, hey, run an audit on our operations. What are some areas in which we could tap into more revenue? This would be one I would imagine AI would be like, hey, you got $400 million a year you're spending on all this stuff. This isn't monetized. At the very least, try and break even on it. I could totally see. And I think you may see more of this as AI gets implemented and starts finding these nooks and crannies for revenue.
The accountants, by the way, have modeled stuff before, right? And we hear from Hugh Johnston all the time. Oh yeah, our modeling shows this, our predictions show that. How do you think they're formulating those guesses, right? They're looking at the historical data. They're looking at every single spreadsheet they can even get their hands on. And yeah, Jared, if they're feeding this data into an AI that's saying, okay, look, listen, we have to reduce costs or operating costs at Walt Disney World. How do we actually do that effectively? Well, you can start with this, and then maybe a multi-point plan is actually printed out. Who knows what's on the table right now? But I think there will be consequences from this. I think, I'd like to look at that resort revenue from sales of like bars, for example, right? The Grand Floridian just added another bar right next to their existing bar, right? So, what was some of that built on a model that no longer exists now with this, resort hopping restriction? It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you start getting into and we discussions about maybe the wait times being low, the parks aren't as busy. There's a lot of factors that can go into that with both Disney and Universal. Maybe this is a little bit of the higher gas prices just now hitting attendance a little bit. And so now if Disney see these numbers, and again, this is whenever you start really kind of being like, okay, what are some, and I think it's plausible that they could. We'll see if they end up doing that or not. But yeah, I think I'm be very curious to see what the reaction to this will be and what, because this is going to shift and change as time goes along as well.
Oh, for
but
sure.
I think when you just look at Magical Express is gone, Fast Pass are charged for now. Look at the park prices. Like, I don't think any of this stuff's off the table to say they may do this. So I think it's always in the back of your mind about what else are they going to do. This could be one of them. We'll see what they do here. But before we move on, you guys get your final thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I think I got everything out. What about you, gentlemen?
No, I'm good.
Well, I never like to see this, right? You never like to see the erosion of some of these foundational tenets of Walt Disney World, for lack of a better term, right? I mean, everybody remembers that I think 2015 or 2013 era, right? A commercial that came out where, yeah, you get free magic bands whenever you stay, and all included transportation and all that. To see that kind of get whittled away a little bit is never comfortable. It's never nice, and I dislike this mentality. At the same time, though, when the company is trying to make every single dollar that it can from a theme parks related business, because maybe their other businesses aren't as robust, right?
Right.
Well, then you see more things like this.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll see on that. We'll keep an eye on it. And like I said, if the bus transportation stuff is interesting, because I remember talking to my dad about that stuff, like the maintenance and everything they do on there. That's a whole interesting thing. And I agree with you, Vash. There has been some issues amongst the bus drivers over the years of not liking certain changes and pushing back on that stuff. And again, labor, that's a major cost that they're always going to try and figure out a way to get cheaper. So
yep,
it's into that. And honestly, if Disney did it, I wouldn't be surprised if Universal did it too.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. I'm telling you, like, as Universal gets bigger, as Universal gets more of that market share, and I love Universal, man. I'm there every weekend, and the one out here in Hollywood. But don't be too surprised, as they gain market share, they become more Disney-ish in their decisions, because as demand increases, sometimes you got to make those hard decisions. Vash and I have been doing content for years, and remember, Vash, we talked about it. There has to be some barrier to entry for some of this stuff. Either you raise the price, or you reservations, and as Universal gets bigger, there's going to be some of that decision making, for them as well. Go ahead, Matt.
Of course. I mean, and you if you incentivize behavior, you get more of it. If you disincentivize it, you get less of it. And so it's a constant balancing act. If in fact you do have, because I mean, look, I'm not a fan of them doing this, but I've also heard from guests staying at like Saratoga Springs, for example, or Port Orleans, right? Where it's like, hey, look, listen, if I want to just use a boat in order to go back to my resort that I paid for, I got to wade through this huge line of people that are trying to go to my resort as well. And I'm sure a lot of them aren't staying there. When you have that kind of thing happening, it's like, okay, we have to do something about this. And there's two ways you can go. You can add capacity, which is going to cost money, or you can implement some restrictions, which don't cost you anything.
Or potentially make you money, depending on what you do.
Precisely, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Because now you are maybe incentivizing people to actually stay on property, which gets us back to where we started here, right? The erosion of that bubble. How do we get people to stay on property more, especially with more competition? Well, you start, enforcing restrictions to only people who actually stay on property.
Well, and that's a good point, because I think it could be a way to enhance like a perk. So like, you stay on Disney property, it's all included. And everybody else, it becomes a la carte. You got to add it onto it. So like you could see that as a way they build, because I've often said they're going to have to build value in at some point with as many price hikes that they have. This could be a way that they create value by charging some people for this and making it part of staying on property or buying certain packages. That is totally something you could see. And with Universal too, I mean, OG, you've talked about this. The fact that they want to become more of a theme park company. Their other side of their business is a melting ice cube. And linear stuff. And so like they're trying to make more money from the parks. So not only as they get bigger, may they act more like Disney, but they're also going to want to increase. They just had $1 billion quarter. They do not want to go under $1 billion again. So that is where you can really see them start doing it too, unfortunately. But part of that also comes with, when things get bigger, you got to change some of the things that you do time to time, and that could be a byproduct of all of this.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that Disney is a mature company when it comes to their theme parks, and especially when it comes to Walt Disney World, right, in Orlando. A mature company that's been rooted for decades with 4 parks and multiple resorts is going to behave differently than the company that's trying to gain market share.
Yep.
The up and coming is always going to have the cheaper prices because they have to build out market share. But once that up and coming company gets to a level where they feel they've really secured a spot, well, they don't have to be cheaper anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough, but we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out.
We will see. Well, let's move on and talk about we're speaking of Universal. Let's talk about Universal Studios. And I don't think this is going to become a shock as to anybody on this panel, probably most people in the chat, is that Universal finally officially unveiled Celestial Goodnight, which is going to be the Epic Universe fireworks show. It is going to debut on July 7th. We just happened to already have a Helios reservation for my wife and I's birthday. Her birthday's on the 7th, mine's on the 8th. So we had a really good rate. So we're like, hey, let's just go stay here and hang out. And then turns out this is the opening night of this new show. Now, this isn't a shock. They had trademarked Celestial Goodnight back in December. They've been doing tons of, additions to the fountain here, some of the lighting packages, adding spotlights, the fireworks peninsula, like all this stuff has been leading toward a fireworks show. It starts July 7th. Not a lot of specifics on this and some speculation on what this may or may not include. I do find it interesting they didn't have any mention of drones in this, which they have done drones before. But what are you guys' thoughts on this upcoming fireworks show for Epic Universe? And I would imagine they're going to want to have this compete with Happily Ever After, would be my guess is what that bar is for them. But what do you guys think about this?
Well, we've been talking a lot here on all of our channels, right, about Universal wanting to do that open hub concept. And one of the reasons why they want to have an open hub is to get more people into those restaurants at night, later in the evening. Well, I mean, this nighttime show is going to have more park guests there later, and that's fantastic. I mean, this is how you do it, right? This is how you get them to stay later into the evening. So I support it 1000%. From what we're hearing, Jared, we were talking about last night with Theme Park Wizard, where it was like, I mean, some of these lights are so powerful. Like you were saying, they have to like tone them down or something when airplanes go by or something crazy like that.
Spotlights, yeah, they were. I had some people tell me that they were watching them testing, and those spotlights were like they almost thought it was like a UFO. They were so bright, so they had to tone those down. And I think they said 7 million LEDs.
Dude,
is what is in slush or around the hub area, I suppose.
7 million.
I love it. I love it. And that's why I think this is fantastic. I think this is exactly what this park needs. More of this. I want to see more meet and greets. We're getting new attractions. We've been seeing a lot of permits, right, being filed for that. This is what you got to do, man. You got to build up. Look, the thing with this park, the biggest flaw with this park is that the capacity stuff and spreading these crowds out. And they're making the right moves. It's going to take a little while to get there. And then once they get there, though, we can get the APs in here, right? So
that's a good point. I mean, that absolutely, OG, the biggest problem is going to be capacity, right? But the second biggest problem, and I've said it multiple times, is no nighttime show. What's to keep you there, late evenings, right? How do we actually spread those crowds out? Not just horizontally, but vertically, maybe, if in the time and space. Anyway, look, most important though, you got to get people to stay longer in this park. You got to get that second, maybe third bite at the apple when it comes to dinner reservations, shopping, and all of that. And this is just something that this has kind of lacked here ever since opening. Now, again, maybe when it comes to opening this park officially for the public that is in huge demand, maybe it's not your biggest priority. But Jared has brought this out before. Now we're going on a year in this park. How do we actually get people to come back? How do we actually get those revenues flowing again? Well, I think one of those ways is to offer a nighttime spectacular that people have to stay for. Jared was exactly right. 7 million LEDs embedded in that Celestial Park area, but they're also saying 600 synchronized light fixtures, I believe, just for the show, 350 larger-than-life fountains. I mean, it should be pretty spectacular. It's something that I've advocated for, and maybe we can actually get later hours because of this as well, especially if you can play multiple times a night. That might be pretty cool right there. APs maybe on the way, and obviously you're gonna have something to see if in fact these fireworks presentations actually go off. What I'd be curious is, do you actually have a fireworks presentation with this open hub concept? That's going to be interesting to see whether or not they go that far with it. Maybe perhaps they actually make that open hub concept exclusive to weekdays, have pyrotechnics on weeknights, weekends. That's what I kind of think is going to happen initially. Well, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, Vash, I want to ask you a quick question before we go to Conductor. Real quick, I actually suggested last night because Steven Spielberg is really like the face of Universal in a lot of ways.
Sure,
he's brilliant. I mean, legendary career, right? I mean, amazing dude. But like, what if they
incorporate a little bit too?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But what would you think about having a Steve? Because I know they did it with the opening ceremonies or the opening show for this park, but having Spielberg maybe like have him part of the intro spiel or something, because he's kind of like, and I don't want to use this lightly because Walt Disney was definitely like a one in a billion kind of guy, but Spielberg is sort of that kind of figure for Universal. Do you think it would be good of them to kind of like, smart of them to like kind of lean into that and have him kind of narrate the show or something? I don't know. I think it'd be kinda cool.
Yeah. I think a Steven Spielberg narrated show, or maybe having him involved in doing that, would be awesome. That would be super, super cool, because I don't think we've really seen that from Steven Spielberg. And obviously he's done a lot of work with attractions before, with movies, as we know, and so forth. So I think it'd be really cool if in fact they do lean into that. I don't know. I mean, Jared, conductor, maybe you can illuminate me on this, but what kind of show is this? Is this going to be kind of an atmospheric show that really leans heavily into Celestial Park, or is it going to be maybe like a mashup IP show that we are, experienced with traditionally?
That is a question I've asked around. I haven't got any specifics on this, and that they were very vague in this. Some people have speculated they kind of use the word fireworks as the tail end of this show. It's much more of a fountain show. I would imagine, though, like there's a lot, like if that's what this is, I imagine that would not go over very well. I mean, we've seen them put on fireworks shows at Epic before. This one I believe is for the opening, and it was a massive display of fireworks. So I think if you're doing this and this is your flagship park for Universal, which this park is, you're gonna have to give it the proper type of fireworks show that people expect. And I think really when you're talking about, at least in the realm of Disney and Universal, Happily Ever After is kind of the bar you're looking at there. And so you're going to have something that is on the scale of that. And maybe they're being vague because they have more stuff in here they're going to do. I've speculated about maybe projection mapping on Helios. I don't think that that's going to be something they start with, at least. That is something that's been out there. But I mean, maybe along the lines of what we saw for the opening here. But I do know the fountain stuff, I think there's going to be a little bit more maybe phantasmic, like where they have some sort of projections onto the mist from the fountains and things like that. But I don't know. That's a really good question that I don't know the answer to. What happened here?
No, but the kind of add on to what Jared's saying, because when you look at the show right now, okay, it starts off playing the soundtrack of Celestial Park, and the fountains, the lights throughout Celestial Park, the surrounding buildings, they interact with it. Then it goes from that to IP in the park. So it starts off with Super Nintendo World, then it goes to Harry Potter, then it goes to, I think after Harry Potter, it goes to Dark Universe, then it ends on Isle of Berk, then it jumps back to Celestial Park. So, after watching the media preview, okay, when all the media was there and they had all the bells and whistles, the fountains, the fireworks, the projection mapping, the drones, all that stuff for media, I think personally, I don't know. I think it's awesome they could do that, but is it kind of overkill? Like, is there too much happening in one space? You know what I mean?
That's a great point you bring up, conductor, because out here we have World of Color, right?
Sure.
And some of the most visually effective scenes, in my opinion, are the ones that are the most simplistic, which is there's one in the original World of Color, there was one scene with the Little Mermaid, and all it was a bunch of blue fountains that rose up when you heard her doing her little mermaid melody, right? Yeah. And there was a few projections here and there, but it was a very simplistic sort of scene, and it was powerful, man, and you get goosebumps. But then you have other shows, like other World of Color variations, where they're throwing everything at you, including the kitchen sink. They got lasers and this, that, and the other. And it's like, you don't even know where to look, and it kind of loses its impact. There's a lot of noise, and it doesn't really make that oomph. You know what I'm saying? So it's a great point. Sometimes you can overdo it, man. Sometimes, a simple kind of show, which is some beautiful fireworks or whatever, sometimes that hits harder than the one where they're like just going overboard with technology. So.
Yeah. Well, Happily Ever After is a show, like, it's kind of simple in what it is.
Yeah.
It's projections onto the castle. You got fireworks, you got music. That's kind of all it is. So I think I agree. If you do too much here, it is kind of a little bit like, where do I look? What do I do? So if you got drones and you got fireworks, you got fountains, you got spotlights, you could really see people just being like, where in the world do I look here? Versus, I imagine maybe this goes like they do a feature thing on the fountain part, goes to the fireworks, maybe back and forth. maybe some drones in there. But yeah, I think that's a valid point and a good question on this. But Vash, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
Well, World of Color, by the way, World of Color, the original, best version. But that's assuming that you have an emotional resonant piece that you actually use for those slow spots, right? And I think a lot of these creators of nighttime spectaculars, they do throw the kitchen sink at you because, it's the big bang flashy franchise, go, 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 and there's no highs and lows, right? Which I think Steve Davison was really good at including in every single one of his shows. And some people have picked it up, but I don't think necessarily as well as he used to back in the day. When it comes to something like this, so if you go with a fireworks heavy show, that also it also speaks to maybe where you actually stand for it, right? So if it's just a lagoon or water show, that viewing area is not the biggest that I've seen. But if it's more of a fireworks show, now people may be spread out a little bit right there. So I think that's going to be an operational thing too that maybe Universal discovers when actually doing this. And if something's not as compelling, right? If people don't actually stay for it, then obviously you're not necessarily doing. The point of a nighttime show is to get people to stay. If they're not staying for the show, which, by the way, we actually saw with Harmonious, right? That's why we got Luminous, because people weren't, and they had to switch course. They had to switch tack right there. So again, it's great to see a show if it's underwhelming, or maybe there's some operational issues connecting to it. I got to find out real fast.
Well, Vash, I also want to bring up too, because you and I both know how amazing Wondrous Journeys is as a fireworks show. I mean, this show is, Jared, this show is a masterclass. I'm telling you, they brought it out for Disney's 100th, and it's 100 years of Disney animation. And the pacing in this show, the end scene, I'm not going to ruin it. Check it out on YouTube.
Yes.
One of the best fireworks shows I think Disney has ever done worldwide. Would you agree, Vash?
Yeah. I mean, the original score is one of the best original scores they've ever done for any fireworks show ever. I mean, that includes Wishes and everything else. I mean, it's really, really top notch, really, really spectacular right there. Well, I know you're an animation fan, so obviously it's going to speak to you on that level. But I think it speaks to the wider guest as well.
When it comes aiming for with Enchantment, was that type of show when they had that at Disney World?
I don't know what they were doing with Enchantment. Maybe. Possibly. It's just, that one was so weird. But yeah, they did kind of do like an animation heavy thing right there. And it just, I don't know. It didn't really have a central theme or whatever, or thesis that you could really connect with. I think the guys who actually did Wondrous, they really kind of leaned into the animated aspect right there, and they actually have a story that actually goes with it. And I don't know if people necessarily pick up the subtext there, but subconsciously maybe you do, and it works really, really well. I'd like to see Epic Universe go a little bit more of that emotional route, because I think you can, right? I think there are aspects of Harry Potter in which you can do that. There are aspects in like E.T., for example, that you can do that, right? And so forth. A Celebration of the Park, though, if you're going with like the media show that they did, interesting idea as well.
Yeah. I think if you want to hit the emotional beat, you get Michael Bolton and you get Kenny G. And if they're playing that song, it's done. It still drives me nuts. They play it in Happily Ever After, but the Going the Distance, that is a Michael Bolton banger. And the fact that they don't use Michael Bolton, every time I hear it, it just makes me so mad. And Michael Bolton and Kenny G did one song together. And I think when they did that song, everyone went, it's too much. You guys can't do this again because people can't handle it. And so if you bring him in here, no one's going to have a dry eye. They're going to be like, that was one beautiful show I've ever seen in my entire life. And if you have Michael Bolton's glorious hair on Helios, best show I've ever seen.
Now you're talking about Michael Bolton. He was in Office Space, right? Have you guys seen Office?
He listen. I mean, I love that movie, but he was degrading the great name of Michael Bolton in that movie. But he was in that movie. I forgot about that.
He was.
Yeah, well, we haven't really seen a custom score, I think, with any Universal production. It'd be kind of interesting to see them get into that game a little bit with this, and maybe they are. Maybe saying Universal Celestial Goodnight is kind of one of those like, hey, this is going to be a little bit more original than we've ever done before, possibly.
Yeah, and Sensational is a pretty good show for what it is, but they do rely on soundtracks for that. So it's like you're using nostalgic music as part of that show, which I think does work. But yeah, I agree. I kind of think what you might see in terms of if you tie in the open celestial park concept with this, I kind of feel like they're going to premiere this, see how this does with the food reservations and things. And if that doesn't quite get people to stick in here like they want, then maybe you see them introduce that open celestial park concept, at least like to APs, maybe to hotel guests. Like I think you might see this in phases because I do think that is something that they're going to do. You don't do all that facial recognition scanners in those portals to just do it for no reason.
Exactly.
So I think this may be the timeline here. And if enough people stay here every night, maybe you see extended hours. That was the rumor with this. You could see extended hours. That would be great for this. But I kind of feel like they're going to take multiple approaches. But I still think on some level, an open celestial park happens. Maybe it's only on the weekends too. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be every night. I think you see it on some level because the weekends have been pretty lower compared to the rest of the week, at least on Epic so far.
Yeah. Now, conductor, you saw Wondrous Journeys?
I did.
What did you think about it? I'm just kind of curious.
I agree with you and Vash. One of the best shows ever. Camera does not do it justice. In person, 100% phenomenal. Like, I mean, I was blown away. And as a grown man, I did have a tear in my eye.
There you go.
Phenomenal.
Hey, conductor, I'll tell you this. It moved me so much. It made my hair stand up. It was crazy. And it hasn't come down since. So
exactly.
That's insane. That's really something. That Wondrous song, though, I'm telling you. Banger. Straight banger. It'll be in your head for like weeks.
Oh, yeah. I want to ask you, gentlemen, about this because, you know, with Epic Universe, I did see something online, and Jared, I think you did report on it. I'm not sure. I can't remember. You know, what if in the near future with the expansion, now the nighttime show, we can start seeing, you know, after dark events and how that can tie into the nighttime show?
You know, that's interesting because you saw Orlando Informer at their meetup in November. They're including Epic in it, but it's a 2-day thing. I think it's $450. I don't think we're going to do the first one because I'm for dropping $1,000 for two of us. I'm like, I want to see how this goes first. But I do wonder, maybe Universal doesn't do the after hours events like themselves. Maybe they use the Orlando Informer to be the way to do those. Is kind of what I'm wondering because I did hear that they are going to look at after hours events at Epic, but I just don't know if it's going to be Universal themselves doing it or if they're just going to use Orlando Informer's sort of infrastructure to put those on.
Well, see, here's the interesting part. This is what I love about Epic. You know, being that I was actually there, boots on the ground, one of the things I looked at very much is Celestial Park is basically a blank canvas for each portal.
Yeah.
And as they could incorporate after dark events, you know, Celestial Park becomes that, you know, extended land of whatever portal they're celebrating. It could be Harry Potter, it could be Dark Universe, it could be How You Train Your Dragon, it could be, you know, Super Nintendo, it could be any of those. So they were very brilliant how they built this park by every means necessary. So that's why I'm thinking they are going to do an after dark, or they're going to start doing after dark events. I think the catalyst is going to be seeing how the Orlando Informer does. Once that happens, once we see a little more expansion with Harry Potter, with Dark Universe, according to the permits, I think going forward, you know, we're going to see a lot more. APs are going to be included on that. And, you know, I think a lot of the fireworks celebration, the projections, the fountains, I think there's going to be more shows to come. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right. And I think just like we were talking about Disney, I think you're going to see them do a lot more stuff with Epic to try and keep those revenues up. And really, if you look at a demand standpoint for Epic, I don't think there's many people, I'm sure there's some, but most people that go to this park will say, you know, I hear the feedback and say, it's a cool park, it's a beautiful park, but the wait times. If demand is there. So if you have an after hours event where you pay a little bit more, but you don't have the crowds in there, I do imagine there's a lot of demand for that and an easy way to bump up more revenue for Universal. It's not something they typically have done on their own, but again, this may be part of their growth strategy is to do more things like this, like we've seen Disney World do and stuff like that. So I agree. I think you see more stuff like this, probably. And I know Mark Woodbury has talked about the cadence of attractions, and I think you're actually seeing this in real time with, Epic open in 25. You've got the construction going on right now. So like you might have a new attraction come online every year for the next 10 years. And a lot of that I think will be with Epic as well. So like you're creating, you got new stuff coming in, which they know brings in crowds. You also at the same time help alleviate some of the demand off of Epic, probably especially once they do Pokemon.
Sure.
It's really interesting seeing how they're setting this up. I mean, obviously Epic has kind of put them in a different category, I think, in terms of like how big they're getting, the week-long destination goal that they are now. And I think you just see more of this type of stuff of really trying to figure out, A, give people what they want, but B, monetize more stuff based on demand and things like that. And I think that's probably what we're just going to continue to see.
The one thing I will say going forward with Epic, as they expand, as the park gets bigger, is I have a zero problem of them building, top-notch attractions. I have zero problem with that. But in between that, you build filler attractions, because one of the biggest problems with Epic, and we can pretty much all agree at this point, is that it has too many e-ticket attractions. Each e-ticket attraction's several hours wait. When the weather does its weird thing, which it did when I was down there, about 3/4 of the park shuts down, and then it's just like, okay, now what? Now we have to outwait the the weather. Then once the weather goes away and it clears up, then they have to do ride testing. Then there's delays. It's just they need more filler attractions and more attractions indoors where they can accommodate. You know what I mean? That's the only problem I see with Epic at this moment.
I do wonder if those upcoming attractions, like Wizard was, amazing enough to actually track this one down, but the 71,000 square foot building going into Dark Universe containing, we're guessing maybe a Mac hybrid water/roller coaster type attraction, maybe that has a lower height requirement to it, in order to provide, like you said, Conductor, more intermediate attractions, especially for families, especially on rainy days. I think that is something that maybe with these attractions that are coming online, perhaps the Harry Potter attraction is like this as well, they're trying to address, because you are right. I mean, they do need more of basically everything because everybody loves this park. Everybody loves the attractions, but not everybody can ride them. This park is made for after hours parties, corporate events. They're making a huge corporate event space right there. Expect more of that. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the wait time thing is real. We were there like a month ago, and you're just dodging wait times. Like, you're just trying to figure out, okay, this one's too long. Like, it's a part of the experience of what Epic is right now. But I think, now I will say, I was told by both of those expansions are going to be indoor attractions. So that is definitely something. I knew they hired this indoor architecture firm like last year. So, and that's a legit thing. Like, it's not an if, but a when it rains in Florida. And when it rains at Epic, half that park you can't do anything with. And so if you already have stuff, so it's a real problem there. And I think, in 10 years, that's probably alleviated for the most part. But, where it's at right now, it's just, that is the thing I always tell people. It's like maybe a year out, I've always said for the first year of this park, it's kind of a beta testing mode. I don't know if you'd still say it's that, but they still haven't got everything up to the level that they want. I don't really know where Battle is. I know they were having a lot of struggles early on with that. I think it's gotten better. But yeah, I mean, I think that while they continue to build out, they're just going to try and tap into more things here. And don't forget, I think probably next year you see a parade come online as well. So things like that can help this park out. Probably more meet and greets. And Universal could build quickly. So maybe they build these new expansions within 2 years. And so that's pretty quick for a theme park, but that still gives you 2 years where you're going to have to deal with this park where it currently is, and throwing, nighttime fireworks shows in here, after hours events, probably along with the fireworks show, I'd imagine they're going to have fireworks parties, like, reservations to do this stuff. So there's a lot of ways they can monetize this outside. Like the firework party keeps people in there longer, but
Sure.
they can monetize
Well,
ancillary things around a fireworks party or a fireworks show as well. That I'm sure
I'll tell you this. One of the things, for an after dark event, because we all know during Halloween, Halloween Horror Nights, the studios park both here on the West Coast and on the East Coast out there, HHN is superior. It takes over. And what Epic could do, they could go the Disney route and kind of have like that Oogie Boogie Bash type Halloween event where it's more catered towards families. And that way they could extend the hours that way. They could incorporate some type of Christmas, holiday IP where, again, it increases that park hours for this. So I agree with you. Within a 2-year span, if they move that fast on these new attractions, within those 2 years for filler stuff, they have a laundry list of stuff they could do, and a lot of it Disney has already implemented. So they could take a page out of Disney's book and incorporate that into Epic Universe.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly they probably will. I mean, Disney kind of wrote the book on this stuff, and so you can take what works and what doesn't. I do now. To that point, I think there was an article 2 weeks ago or something like that where they actually mentioned they were going to do more seasonal stuff at Epic, so like Halloween stuff, Christmas stuff. So I do think you see that. I don't know if you see a dedicated party yet.
Sure.
But I've been curious about that. Along with Halloween Horror Nights, do they tap into maybe more of a family-friendly Halloween event at Epic that is, it wouldn't pull away from Halloween Horror Nights because it'd be so polar opposite. But it would be interesting if they're able to do both, because that's something that Disney can't do in HHN.
No.
Universal could do that and have more of a family-friendly version of it, so they could kind of have their cake and eat it too.
Well, exactly, because one of the things I look at, and maybe I'm just speaking more on the West Coast, but I would imagine for the East Coast, I'm sure the studios park out there for Halloween Horror Nights, they go a lot more edgy. But think about it. If you have more like that Oogie Boogie Bash type celebration at Epic for the families, for the kids, but then at the studios park, you get a lot more edgier and a lot more kind of, on the tip of your seat type spookiness. I think that would just open the book and shut it on Disney, because you're right, Disney can't do that. What besides Magic Kingdom, what other park other parks have they had a holiday celebration where they can even come close to Universal?
The only one they do, Magic Kingdom, and they do Hollywood Studios has Jollywood Nights.
Okay, well, yeah, but that's Christmas though,
right? Yeah,
you can throw Christmas in anything,
right?
It's kind of hard to throw Halloween in Epcot. It's like, how are you going to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is also the, I think this is the same park. And Jared, you might remember this story from a few months ago, how they were trying to maybe get a parade building actually built for Epic Universe at one point. Assuming that was accurate and true, that means that this is the other park that could maybe host a parade like Universal Studios Florida currently can, and maybe that's another offering that you could actually have here with parties, holiday parties, and all of that. We'll have to see how that all actually shapes out. I think for right now, though, I think they're just worried about like being able to service the day guests, and it's like, okay, let's go ahead and service the day guests properly. Let's go ahead and extend these hours out, and then once we actually get some of this infrastructure in here for these shows, these additional rides and so forth, then we can actually talk about some more of piecemealing this whole thing out here. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. From talking to people I have at Universal, even with that big as it is now, like it's still like they're still reacting to feedback that they get and data they get back. So I think you will see this like one piece at a time thing added in here. And really, it's a smart way to do it. I mean, you try and do too much stuff at once. For one thing, I always say this too. It's like if you did this and an open celestial park concept, you're not really sure which one's working. But if you do this, then you by itself, you know how what kind of reaction does this have after a month or two, and then you can say, okay, is this where we want it? Do we need to add more? Then you throw in the Open Celestial Park, whatever level they may do it. That gives you more data. So I think you will see them just one thing at a time, see how this does, test it out, stuff like that.
The first night this is on, by the way, this is July 7th. I thought it was really interesting, that date right there, because a lot of people were like, wait a minute, what about July 4th? Are we maybe assuming that they're going to have a July 4th celebration utilizing this newly installed infrastructure like these fireworks launch points and so forth, and then close it out with Celestial Goodnight? I think that's maybe how they're thinking it, but haven't heard word on whether or not they're doing anything for July 4th.
Yeah, I haven't either. I was curious about that. They did one last year. And I would imagine, for the 250th, I would imagine they would, but maybe they do. I wouldn't be shocked if they do a soft preview of this, maybe for the 4th of July, something like that. That might be something they do. But yeah, I thought that was curious as well. Excuse me, that they did just start it on the 7th, which again, we're going to be there. I really wish they would. I do think if you're a guest to Helios, you should have access to Celestial Park, in my opinion.
I think so.
But
Yes.
we were talking about, we weren't planning on going into the park, but if we don't go into the park, there's OG. OG has some internet issues out there. He's all good now. If we're not going to go into the park, where are we going to watch this? I would imagine we can see this from the pool area or something. So I don't know. When we get there, I guess we'll figure out what our options are. But I don't know if we'll be able to see this in Celestial Park. But I'm curious. I think this would be really cool. They've been working on this for probably over 2 years now. They've been talking about this for a long time, so I think there's a lot of expectations for this. And if it is just a fountain show and light fireworks, and they've spent this much time on it, I don't believe that's going to go over that well. So they do have some pressure. Yeah,
but see, one of the things I do appreciate, Jared, is because when you look at the media videos out there on YouTube, you have to think about it. They had multiple different things going on at once. They had the fireworks, they had the projection mapping, as you see on your screen right now. They had the drones, they had the fountains, all the buildings were lined up, the music. So that's 7 different things right there. Yeah. So think about it. Okay. They have 7 different forms of entertainment, put into a show. So let's say, a couple of the infrastructure things, like maybe fireworks due to weather, maybe it's the drones, maybe it's the projection mapping on the Helios. They still have other options to make the show, significant enough where it's still entertaining compared to, for example, Disneyland. Me and OG, I don't know together, but one point or another, we've been at Disneyland where we're thinking, okay, yeah, we're going to get some fireworks, and whatnot, and due to weather, no fireworks, no show, because rain and wind. So this, at least on the other hand, has multiple different options of infrastructure. So regardless, they could still have a show, but maybe not have all 7 present at once.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And I'll just also point out the fact that they have all that seating around the fountain is another kind of cool aspect about this park, that you're going to just I imagine that's going to be chock full, but you have dedicated seating here that maybe won't be as much of a, the hub at Magic Kingdom around the fireworks show is a madhouse.
Oh God.
Man.
So maybe it's not as bad for that, but yeah, anytime when we do stay for the fireworks and that show's done, we just park and sit for a minute, because I'm not even gonna mess with this herd of people trying to leave this park right now. It's a nightmare. But OG, what do you think about this? You had some internet issues. We were just talking fireworks show here at Epic and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, here's the thing too, and I've said this about DCA, right? The biggest hurdle for any new park is getting that park built in the first place. Putting that infrastructure in place and getting that park built in the first place. So Universal has overcome the biggest obstacle. They got this thing built, right? And it's off to a very strong start. So now that they got this place built, now they can add all these little things in here, right? Like the nighttime shows, more meet and greets, more attractions. So the park will only get better as time goes on, right? Mm-hmm. So, they're off to a fantastic start. They're going to do this nighttime show. You know, maybe they'll add some other stuff too in this park to kind of flesh it out. But I don't know. I'm excited about it. And I think that this is exactly what Universal needs to really compete with Disney. I will say this. I think Universal, when it comes to attractions, they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're giving Disney a run for their money. I will say I find that the entertainment, though, nighttime spectaculars, parades, things like that, I think Universal, that's where they're a little weaker. And I think there is a little bit of room for growth there. So if they can do a killer show, dude, and just knock it out of the park, no pun intended, then they're on to a great start, because that is a little bit weaker. I mean, the attractions, they're crushing it, right? Ministry of Magic, you know, Spider-Man, they've been doing crazy good Disney quality attractions for a long time. Entertainment, not as much. So if they can step that up, dude, they're hanging with the big boys in, you know?
You know, I just was reading the press release that Universal put out, and OG, they say that Universal's award-winning entertainment team. You know, so I don't know, like, where this hate is coming from. No, I'm joking. I love how companies had to toot their own horn when it comes to stuff.
It's funny. So I used to run my background's in digital marketing. So I used to run a PR service for a buddy of mine. And so when you see people say as seen on NBC and ABC, you'll see people put that on there. The reason they can do that is because they buy a PR like little blast, and then it gets run on all these affiliate ABC, NBC, CBS websites. And that is why they say that. So technically you can just put that out there for like $50, and you too can be somebody that Vash Sky as seen on NBC and AB, you know, that's what they do. But it is kind of funny when they do say that, like award-winning for what? But no, I agree with your point, OG. Like, this is kind of the next natural progression for Universal. Like, they've never done a nightly show like this. And so it's kind of one of their first big tests here. I mean, I would agree, the first big test is getting this park open. And obviously it's been successful for Universal, but then these ancillary things here, these are things that people come to expect. If you want to be a big boy destination, a nighttime show is kind of a must. And so you got to nail that along with other stuff like that. So this is a test. And if they don't nail it, that's going to be really curious. Is like, do they take the feedback? Do they make adjustments? Like how this goes? But surely they understand the assignment here of what people are going to expect from this. You know, you tout all the time. You got this high-tech park, this brand new park, all this stuff. You got to have a show that matches that. You can't have just a ho-hum, a couple of fountain things here and there. Like, you got to really, I agree with you guys. You need to be simple, but I feel like if you go way and above and beyond and you really just throw everything at it, at the very least, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff here. Like, you can wow people by a sheer scale of things maybe, but that will be interesting to see how big and really, I guess you could just say how expansive this show will be. That may not be the best word, but you know.
Well, you know what would be really cool too? I'm kind of like armchair imagineering right now, but like if this show is about the park, right? About the IP of this park, it would be kind of cool if they incorporate the whole park into this show. And what I mean by that is, like, maybe when they're doing the Super Nintendo World segment, there's a special spotlight laser thing coming out of Super Nintendo World at that time. Yeah. And when they're doing Potter lights up, and it's like, each land is kind of spotlighted when it's the focus of the show. I think that's sick, bro. Yeah.
During the media show this footage is taken from, that's what they were doing, was that they were spotlighting every single one of the portals during their segments, and you get them incorporated that way, in a very similar way that maybe Illuminations did with the actual various countries around Epcot. Yes. I love that though, OJ. Like the like integrating the park into it. I always like that. I always think that's like really, really cool, because it's one of its strongest suits, right? How it's designed, how it's laid out, how these characters are incorporated into this park. I think it's a natural fit for this goodnight kiss, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's something magical. I hate to say that, it's so cliche, magical, but like there's something magical about that, where like the park like just erupts, right? That's actually Vash and Conductor. That's why I love our Phantasmic so much. Well, when it's working, but that's why.
That's a good caveat right there.
big caveat, but when it's working, I love the fact that the New Orleans Square and the Rivers of America, these are areas you're visiting through the day, and at night it comes alive. There's something organic about that. You know what I'm saying? I love
especially
that.
this park. This park is so gorgeous at night. I love this park at night. I love theme parks at night in general.
Oh,
And one thing I will say, you might keep your eye out if they do those flying dragons as part of this show, because we haven't really seen that too much. And I know they've been testing the newer versions of those. I wonder if that's kind of like their Tinkerbell idea. Maybe they could use those dragons.
Cool.
That's definitely possible. But we do have a 5 here from Space Dave 2000. Thank you, Space Dave.
Yeah.
It says conspiracy theory. Oh, I like a good conspiracy theory. Did the mouse make it difficult for Universal to get permission and access to doing giant nighttime fireworks?
I mean, it's not really up to Disney though, right? I mean, it's up to.
Well, I guess they could just buy up all the fireworks, maybe. But yeah,
they are the biggest purchasers of fireworks annually, I do believe, or at least that was the stat they used to tout some years ago. Because of that demand as put on by Disney, perhaps that makes it a little bit more difficult, right, for other proprietors to get into it, just because they're buying so much of them. So, maybe you can look at it that way, but like OG said, it's not really up to them to make it harder. I mean, they go to a lot of Chinese factories for these, so it's up to them.
Right. I said the whole time, either Universal's preparing a nighttime fireworks show, or they're invading a country. Because I don't know why else you would just accumulate all this pyrotechnics. And it's like, actually, we're invading this evening. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. But no, like I said, I'll be there on the ground. I'll try and get some good footage of this and see what it's like. And I hope it's great. I really do. But even if it's not great, I'm going to be staying at Helios, enjoying a birthday with my wife. So it's like, hey, if it's bad, it's bad, whatever. But we'll see what it is.
Exactly.
But, I'm going to go tell my kids goodnight, but I will introduce you guys to the next story because we'll keep this going. And this one, probably another hot button one. I'm really curious what people think about this. So this is from Blog Mickey here. And apparently Imagineering is going to utilize Adobe AI for theme park design work. Now, we had Drew on last week, and they're talking about, human-led things and that they were not using AI for generative art and things of that nature. But it says here, Disney is bringing a new set of AI tools into the mix when it comes to theme park design. Adobe announced a collaboration with Walt Disney Imagineering Research and Development today to speed up the design and pre-production pipeline for Disney parks and experiences. And the deal centers on custom models trained on Imagineering's own assets. And they got some examples in here. Now, we've kind of alluded to AI before and being utilized, but I mean, do you guys think this goes against kind of what Disney has said they're going to use AI for, or do you think this goes into exactly what they plan on doing? And then I will be right back.
Okay, it really is walking a tightrope here with this stuff, and it's tough because anytime you have new technology, you're going to lose jobs, right? When they went from hand drawn to CGI, when they went to more computerized work, all those ink and paint people lost their job. You know what I'm saying? So there's always going to be some pullback on anyone's job when a new technology comes into the equation. So, and I sympathize with anyone that would lose their job with this move. It's tough, man, because on one part of it is like, dude, one of the biggest problems with Imagineering, the bloat, and it takes forever to do anything. And so on one end of it, it's like, yeah, let's use AI. Let's speed this thing up, baby. Let's get these things out there. Let's be a leaner company and get these attractions built on a faster timeline. But at the same time, human beings, though, right? Like, I want human beings being the primary creative force. I still feel like with this move, that's still the case. But at the end of the day, it is a slippery slope. And this is the thing. It's going to be a lot of like, what's the word for it? Like push and pull with this AI stuff to kind of see where they settle into it. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's nerve wracking though, right, Vash? I mean, it's like this company was built on human beings. I don't want to lose that.
It is certainly nerve wracking. It is certainly something that you don't necessarily want to see because this company was built by such great people, right? I mean, we heard Walt talk about that actually, and how hey, it makes it takes people, great people, to make a dream a reality, right? It's in the DNA. So I know the creative community has big hangups with AI. I get it. I understand it. I fully get that. And, a lot of Westerners too have hangups with AI. Who doesn't though? The East. They don't care. They will absorb content wherever it actually emanates from. Well, largely, maybe you got some reservations in Japan, but mostly, they're embracing these technologies and they're really running with it. And we have seen some pretty decent things actually come out of, from artists who are utilizing these tools, we would say maybe properly. I know a lot of people like what Pro is doing for his clips and so forth on his show that utilizes AI right there. Skybrows, for example, I've started to see now some like manga or manhwa as like illustrated by AI, like these stories that people are actually coming up with. It's kind of crazy how we're actually seeing this onslaught of creativity. And so to imagine a world in which Imagineering doesn't actually utilize AI at all, I think that's just not going to be the equation. At some point, you're going to see some integration right here. And it's funny, OG, maybe you'll remember this. I think it was maybe last year for the 30th anniversary of Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland, right? Remember Tony Baxter actually gave like a little symposium on this and kind of walked everybody through. And remember how at like the very end of that, he actually showed some AI generated artwork that he had, and everybody excoriated him for it, even referring to it at all. It was really interesting how many people hounded him and said, "Oh, I can't believe he used AI, in order to generate some artistry." And it's like, whoa, guys, that is kind of crazy. That's kind of insane. Look, I understand. I'm not really, necessarily all that hyped about the use of generative AI either, but to actually have it be part of the development process, especially with people that might not be inclined for art, or, hey, look, listen, maybe you have an engineer working at Imagineering, right? Remember the gentleman who actually, the name escapes me, I do apologize, but the Imagineer who came up with the concept for Soren, right? Remember he had to, conductor, you'll know this, he had to develop that erector set in order to sell his concept, his idea of how Soren would actually work, right? If you put AI in the hands of that guy in order to sell some concepts to people who maybe aren't so visually inclined, well then I think everybody will kind of agree that it's like, okay, well, if that project gets funded because you can at least put a visualization to it, people will be like, okay, I think that's a worthy use of that. And so I think people might have to get a little bit more comfortable with this idea that this AI integration is coming. The other thing too is Adobe lists Mickey and Friends, Frozen, Moana, Lilo and Stitch, and Cars as an example. It's interesting how they reference those specific franchises. Right. Maybe that, that particular emphasis placed on those tells you where the company might be going.
Well said, Vash. Now, Conductor has a hard out. Conductor, do you want to say your opinion on AI before you take off? And then after your AI opinion, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you on social media so they can subscribe to you, sir.
Absolutely. So AI for me, for at least Disney, one of the things that I would like to see Disney use AI for, I have no problem with them designing or help designing new attractions, like in the stages of, creating a model or creating, the infrastructure on a computer to try to understand, okay, this is how we're going to build this. This is what we need to do, the steps, the preparation. So it kind of jump starts that. But after that, I kind of think AI needs to, they need to kind of take a back seat with that and go back to the traditional route of using actual Imagineers for the physical process. I think all the backstage stuff, perfectly fine. And, with Josh tomorrow saying, oh, well, we want to create the super app where you have all the Disney apps in one, then you want to merge Hulu with Disney Plus. You want to, do some other stuff. Hey, that's great. Use AI for that. Obviously, people aren't going to be happy about it. AI is here. It's not going away. So why not embrace it? But at the same time, value the traditional ways of doing things and not sit there and turn it into a Judgment Day from Terminator. You know what I mean? Where, robots and AI take over. No. But I think I think with attractions, I think people will warm up to the idea if people realize, hey, instead of seeing an attraction get announced and possibly opening 8-9 years later, compared to if AI was involved and maybe cutting that time in half, I think people would be a lot happier about it. Because was the one common thing we all talk about one point or another, how long attractions take, the process, step by step. I think AI could help in that department.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well said.
That's what I think. But do I agree AI needs to take jobs away, like face-to-face contact? No, I don't think it's ready for that yet. I think it's still early for that. But I think with the infrastructure work, I think that's where AI could be at its best.
Yes, well said. And I do want to say too, I've gotten some heat. I'll admit it. I gotten some heat in the past for making AI like thumbnails and stuff like that. I want to say too, I've never hired anyone to do my thumbnails in the first place. So the only job I'm replacing with the AI thumbnails is my own. so I don't, I've never outsourced my thumbnails anyway. So it's me doing it no matter whether I do an AI prompt or whether I cut and paste the images onto a thumbnail. So, but anyway, Conductor, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got another show coming up. Where can everybody find you on social media, Conductor?
Absolutely. I want to thank you, amazing gentlemen, Mr. Orange Grove 55, Vash Sky, Jared from Capture the Magic. You guys are always amazing. Can't wait to hang out with you guys once again. But you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor, on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we have all three of these amazing gentlemen on that show, and we'll continue to have them on that show as we break down Disney and Universal news, and we speculate. We talk about events going on at the parks. We talk about the current news, D23, the whole 9 yards. It's such a great time, and these gentlemen have such a great input. And the chat helps with it. You guys, oh my gosh, where do I even begin to start to say thank you and the love and support? And Jared, thank you for allowing me to be on your theme parking live streams. It's such an honor. And absolutely. I will see you guys, maybe not this Sunday because it's Father's Day. So I'm going to take my father out for at least breakfast or dinner. I have to do it. I have to do it. I love him to death, so why not? But the following weekend, I believe is the 28th, I will be having 2 guests on that have never been on camera before on my channel. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Conductor.
Peace out, everybody.
Thanks for coming on, man. I'll let you later.
Thank you, Conductor. No, it's Jared. We were just obviously talking about the AI incorporation integration that we're actually seeing right here, and I was just expressing from my own end that I don't think it's unlikely that a creative company like Imagineering not incorporate AI, at least in some respect, right? We're seeing video game companies now incorporating AI in basically every single thing they do in order to streamline work and everything like that, and development and models. There's just a long list, and because the computation power required, right? At this point, with the requirements the way they are, I don't think we'll see an entire attraction actually built by AI and then like fabricated just based off of that single prompt, right? I don't really see that necessarily happening right now. I think you're gonna see a lot of individual assets, right, be worked on similar to what is actually going on right now with the implementation with AI when it comes to content creators and everything like that, which you brought up AI thumbnails and so forth. That's a really interesting methodology, an interesting use case, right? I will say when it comes to AI thumbnails, trying to get it to make an entire thumbnail, it never really works. But to work on individual assets and actually compile those, now you're actually looking at something and you can have it formulate stuff in multiple iterations and so forth. It's really, really kind of interesting how you have to work, and it's going to necessitate a lot of cleanup work. It's going to necessitate a lot of like, hey, listen, this might work in a virtual environment, does not work in a physical environment, right? It's going to take a lot of prompting. I mean, that first Coca-Cola commercial that we actually had that was completely generated by AI had tens of thousands of hours applied to it in prompts and cleanup and all of that, just to make it, user ready right here. These technologies are coming on. At this point, I wouldn't be, necessarily worried about an attraction emanating straight from AI, but we'll see. Go ahead, Edger.
No, I agree. I think, and I can tell you even, which is kind of funny. Like in OG, I talked about this. Like I like to play those AI thumbnails for the live streams and stuff like that. But it's like it's not taking a job because I'm not. It was just me making thumbnails, so
right?
It's like just replacing myself. So
I made the same point. Like I was the one doing them before. Now AI. The only job I replaced was my own. Right? Like same with you. Right, I mean,
and even those, like the Indiana Jones one, that probably took me 45 minutes of prompting to get each one right. Like it just, you got to be really good at prompting, stuff like that. So like I agree with you. I think this stuff's in phases, and like, especially when you're talking about theme parks, like Disney and Universal, Disney will get more flack for using AI than Universal will at this point. Now, maybe that changes into the future, but I think you'd be silly not to use these tools. And if it is based off of Imagineers, their language learning model, it can help you speed up ideas. And I agree with you, or Vash, like you're not going to sit there and say like, design me a dark ride that we're going to put in Fantasyland, hit enter, and job's done. Like that's not how this would work. Like it would be like, here's the concept we have. Give me some ideas. And even from that, like you're right. There's tons of cleanup work you got to do. So it's like, there's still a lot of manual stuff involved with this. And we're even seeing some of these companies that laid off a bunch of programmers due to AI, bringing people back because the cost of it is not as cheap as they thought. And I think also there is some people that are now starting to talk about, and I had made this point. I think it was originally made by Ben Affleck of all people on Joe Rogan a couple months ago, was saying how a lot of these like AI is going to take out these jobs and these jobs and these jobs. It's coming from the AI companies trying to justify these massive evaluations. So of course they're going to come and say, yeah, we're going to take over this sector and that sector. But you're finding out when it's being implemented, it may get there eventually, but it's not there yet. There's still a lot of things that it can mess up on. And I think that is, if you're using it as a tool, like you can use compute, like I look at it very similar to the internet and computers. Like when computers came along, that made designing much more efficient. It didn't take away the creativity of people. And you can make arguments AI can help enhance the creativity because you could try out different things really quickly to see what works and what doesn't. And so it could speed up timelines. But I think most people, at least on YouTube and probably social media's view on AI is a lot more pessimistic than mine. And I understand the AI art stuff. I don't want to see AI slop and things like that. But I do think it's a useful tool. And I don't think you just say no to AI across the board, especially as a company, because you're going to get left behind. And essentially, we've talked about it's like you've got an AI arms race in many ways between countries, between companies, and this is going to trickle down into theme parks and every other facet of business that's out there. And like it or hate it, that's just the reality of this. Like they're just going to be used. It's how they're going to be used. How's the audience receive them? Which I do think will shift over time. I think eventually we're already starting to see people talk about AI driven shows and things. I think you start seeing more stuff like that eventually, and really what's the audience reaction to it. But I think if there's good attractions come out of this stuff, I don't think anybody's going to get mad if Villains Land's a hit and AI helped do it. You know what I mean?
They're not.
Are you even going to tell, right?
Right. Great point,
that's
Vash.
The thing.
Exactly.
It might be transparent. Go ahead, OG.
No, exactly. You're 100% right, Vash. And here's the thing too. It's like, and Jared, we touched upon it a little bit when you were away, but like, I know the biggest thing with AI is people are concerned about people losing their jobs. And that is a huge problem, right? But like you were talking to, Jared, where it's like with any progression of technology, you're going to have that job loss. I mean, CGI, they don't have to like animate every single frame. It's more like a moldable digital character, right? So it's different, right? That's not the same as when they had to draw each frame. So you know, there are people that lost their jobs when they moved on to CGI, and it happens and it sucks. You know, there's going to be some job losses here with AI, 100%, right? But at the end of the day, like if we get a good product and it makes Disney a leaner company where they can actually start building the stuff, like where it doesn't take 7 years to build a coaster, like with Tron. Dude, I don't think anyone's going to complain. And right now it's a new technology. There's always a little pushback with new stuff. I think as it becomes more normalized and utilized, I think people are going to come around to it, but we'll see,
And I think it's going to be implemented in ways, like I said, we don't see, right? Because you could definitely see, for example, like the adventure, right? There was this one interview with an Imagineer who was like, yeah, we have to be really weight conscious with, how heavy things are and what we actually include and how we actually build them, because obviously, everything has to be under a certain weight so that this vessel even floats in the first place, right? And it's like, okay, well, we have a concept right here. It's made out of this much steel. It's very impressive, but we got to get it down. Okay, if you have a prompt in which you say, okay, how do we actually get this lowered, right? And it's like, okay, well, you can effectively do this and you can maintain 97% of your concept. It's like, okay, done. Nobody, I think, would argue that that's a bad use of AI in that context, right? I think everybody kind of goes, oh, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, you would use it in that modality. But then when it comes to generative AI, people get all kind of like, oh, I can't necessarily do that. And it's like, well, listen, I mean, if Tony Baxter is using these, he doesn't even work for Imagineering anymore, right? Like I said, that 30th anniversary Indiana Jones event, right? If he's using it just to kind of play around with and just kind of, develop some concepts or work on some, home projects or whatever, guys, people are going to use it in this way. They just are.
Yeah.
Well, and a company, I mean, we're all Disney fans here, right? There is no way on God's green earth that Walt Disney, this man was all about the technology.
Oh yeah.
There is no way he would opt out of a new toy. Okay.
No.
He would absolutely embrace it.
He would probably be one that would be, he would be trying to head up his own AI company probably if it was around in his day, would be my guess. And I agree with Sean Norani here. I do feel there should be safeguards put in place for AI. Completely agree. AI will probably take away some jobs, but also probably create new ones. And that's the thing. I agree with you, Vash. So many things, like you look at the internet and the early days, whatever I thought it was going to be and what it's evolved into. I think that'll be the same thing with AI. There'll be so many things, and the jobs it does take away, there will be a need for people that can interface with the AI, that can finalize this stuff. Like, you could see a scenario where it creates more jobs. I mean, who knows? Who knows where it goes? And I'm not saying it will or won't, but I think if you're looking at a theme park, what are your biggest costs? Labor and building attractions. Those are the things that cost you the most money. And AI can help you on both of those end, optimizing labor and when you need it, when you don't, things like that. And also, if you can streamline creating new experiences cheaper, quicker, and we've talked about Disney's timelines on construction many times is really long. If these things can help them bridge that gap, I mean, even if people did get mad about it and they didn't like it, the minute they get on an attraction, if it's a great attraction, I don't think people are going to care. I think they're going to be like, this is awesome. This is exactly what I want. And so, hey, AI or not, it's cool.
I think Universal Creative is going to do it anyway, right? Then you're going to be even further behind if you don't, right? Yeah. So you better jump on now.
They are using it. They've even told me there. I mean, they're both Disney and Universal are both using it. I mean, probably well beyond what they've even kind of let slip here of how much they're using this stuff. Undoubtedly.
Right. This is coming from Adobe, not necessarily Disney themselves, right? So it's kind of like, they're already incorporating this stuff. I think Nicole Williams is kind of funny. She's like, they need help, honestly. And it's, I think they do in some respects, right? And so maybe you incorporate some Jarvis information and say, okay, how did Imagineering solve these problems in the past, for example? Or how did, what happened in years, from 69 to 74? How they deal with this particular issue that maybe we're dealing with now? That kind of thing. Like, I think that's going to be further incorporated as time actually goes on here, and it's going to be really interesting to see when it comes to the generative aspect what in fact actually stays, throughout the design process. That is going to be really, really interesting if they even reveal that information at all, because it's not like a video game where you can actually see assets on the kind of what is it, the texture level, right? Where you can actually say, oh, that's the day I generate texture. Can't necessarily do that with an attraction. So it's going to be really interesting to find out, how that starts to come about right here, and if we can actually tell.
Yeah. Well, did you guys ever see that movie it was Johnny Depp. It was years ago where he was dying, and he uploaded his consciousness, and it was like it's like an AI. I can't remember what it was called.
Right.
I can't remember the name of it, but I mean, you give this 10 years, maybe even less, you could probably create a Walt interface or a Tony Baxter interface, or what you could consult. You could have like these consulting sessions in a way and say, hey, is this something that you would have done in your day? You know, like, not that it would be perfect and not that it would be the recreation of Walt.
That's wild.
But you could do that stuff. I mean, you could sit there and consult with it and go back and forth, and like it could really fine tune things in a way that I think, I think the biggest mistake people can make is, and by the way, my wife is one of them. She hates AI. She's like, it's going to kill us all. And I'm like, you may be right. I'm not disagreeing at the totality of it, but it does have its uses. For instance, I was kind of playing around with Claude a little bit. And so I think I told you guys this, but to track my own workouts and stuff, I was like, I'll just see if I can make an app that tracks all the stuff I do. And I built an app that has a built-in coach that I trained on what I want the inputs to be. It adjusts my plan as I go along. It has a food log, all these things. And it was built in like 5 days. And I update it as I go along. That would have cost me $30,000 probably if I wanted to build that even 5 years ago. And so and that's a small case study, and people can do this all the time. You can go do it in Claude right now. But in the hands of very creative people with big budgets, I mean, you can really unleash the power of this stuff. And I think if you're a guy like tomorrow, like Bruce Vaughn, who's very technology driven, I would be licking my chops at what you might be able to do with some of these tools.
Well said. And I just want to give a big shout out to Cal Missing. He is in the building. So he says, what's going on, Cal Missing?
YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Yes. Fantastic YouTube channel. Theme parks have long been at the forefront of technology, giving guests access to innovations. See how Disney I am? Innovations before they become commonplace. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And we also have a 5 here from Il Magic. Thank you, Il Magic. It says, I'm waiting for the day when holograms are going to be used to blend in with animatronics like Jurassic Park for the ride. Now that I agree with. I've actually wondered, Rides with Resistance with that Ray hologram is pretty cool. But I mean, and we probably won't talk about it today, but there is that patent with Disney that kind of like talks. It might be, is that hologram based, that patent where it like changes during the ride? I don't know. I can't remember if that was hologram. You would send me the link, I think, or Vash did.
The projection.
Yes,
Projection
thing.
mapping.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some really cool stuff that you could even use AI to be like, hey, is there like technology to do this? Like, there's a lot of stuff you could do here. So I personally am not going to fault any of these companies for using it. How they use it, I suppose, is case by case. You know, it's like that. You know, I think you're probably going to see studios use more of it as time goes along. That's going to be a little bit more interesting, a little different than theme parks. I agree with you, Vash. It's like, how are you really going to know if, let's say, the Big Thunder redo or maybe the Buzz Lightyear redo, we find out years later, yeah, they use a lot of AI for this. It's going to be different than how it's viewed for like entertainment in terms of like movies and shows. So I think each little category gets treated a little bit differently with this, but I think it's cool. I think it has dangers. I think it has a lot of potential, but I think you could have said the same thing about the internet when it first started as well.
Oh, exactly.
So I think it can be kind of cool. So all right, well let's get to our last thing here, then we will get out of here. Last thing I wanted to talk about here, and I'm going to bring up. Let me bring up the Bluey wait times here. So I want to talk about the fact that, and my wife actually brought this to my attention. And if you look at the Bluey experience at Animal Kingdom, this is kind of an all-encompassing thing about sort of the crowd levels in the summer, which we've talked about how summertime, especially ever since 2020, have not been real busy in theme parks. And there's various reports showing, universally speaking, actually, I'll pull this one up real quick, talking about how the really low wait times at Universal Orlando, and I looked at Disney as well, and they were low as well. So Universal Orlando today, I mean, a lot of this stuff was literally like ready to ride now. I mean, Hagrid's was a 45-minute wait, which is very, very low for that ride. I was looking on the Disney app as well. A lot of the wait times were, even at Magic Kingdom, the highest wait time I think was 45 minutes for Tron. Everything else was like 30 minutes, 10 minutes, like very, really low wait times. And what's interesting was the Bluey experience. We talked on other streams about how obviously this is something that's supposed to help bolster Animal Kingdom, but we're seeing now, like I saw us today, where it was a 10-minute wait for the train, a 20-minute wait for the Bluey experience, which is the same thing for us when we went and did it. I'm wondering, and they had that new ticket deal as well that was released by Disney, where it basically featured Epcot and Animal Kingdom. And that to me right away told me, I don't think Bluey's moving the needle like they thought it might for Animal Kingdom. And I think some of this, after experiencing this, is the Bluey experience. I think that, and we talked about how the venue kind of dictates what this experience is.
Right.
And we're seeing, like, right here, as of today, it was 17-minute wait for Bluey. And at the peak of this, it was 34 minutes. So, like, it's not drawn the crowd. They dropped the virtual queue pretty quickly. But, I mean, what do you guys think about this? Do you think this is indicative of anything in particular? Could it be gas prices? Like, what do you guys think about this, and, like, maybe where Bluey fits into this, and maybe what they were expecting out of this, and maybe what the reality of this is?
Well, here's my take on it. And it's probably going to be different than you two guys. But I do think there's multiple things going on here, right? But honestly, I think it's an Animal Kingdom problem, because we've seen, okay, for example, Pandora, right? Saw a huge spike when that area opened, but then it fell off a cliff, right? Soon thereafter. Bluey, I mean, you can't get more popular than Bluey. And even Bluey, people aren't going to this park. I think the problem is Animal Kingdom. I think the problem is people see this as a zoo. They see it as a zoo with not a lot of rides, and they don't care as much. Now, for me personally, I'm all about Animal Kingdom, dude. I'm a vibes guy. I can sit in this park all day long, and I love it. But the normal people, though, want to ride stuff, right? I think that's the problem. It's an Animal Kingdom thing. You put this Bluey thing anywhere else, like at Disneyland, and I mean, it does really, really well, right? I mean, Pandora. I think Pandora will do better in DCA just because DCA has Cars Land and other stuff to do. I think Animal Kingdom is the problem. Now, look, I'm saying that from someone who really loves Animal Kingdom. I just think this park, from a normie perspective, is not that appealing.
Plus all the construction going on and limited attractions already. I mean, I agree. I've been talking about this problem for Animal Kingdom, especially with all this construction for years now, of this park is going to really struggle. And especially with Epic Online now, people are going to go both places. Animal Kingdom is going to get dumped first. Like, people will still go to Magic Kingdom. Maybe they go to Hollywood Studios, and then they go to Universal. And I think you're seeing Epcot and Animal Kingdom, and Epcot without a festival in the summer. You're seeing these two parks that are really trying to bring up that attendance.
And that's why Bluey's there, because it's to assist with that any way possible right there. Obviously, it's just not moving the needle, and I think part of that is because of the venue dictating the experience, right? If they would have had a traditional show experience, maybe we would have seen things differently, like we saw at the Fantasyland Theater, actually, at Disneyland. It's really, really quite interesting because, this purchasation of rides, right, by like these companies like Universal, like Disney, in order to sell Express or Lightning Lane, has created a very interesting dynamic in which you are now seeing the audience go, okay, well, this park only has 6 rides. This park has 27 rides. I'm going to go ahead and spend my time there, even though there might be more, there might be other entertainment offerings there. Those don't necessarily get factored into the equation. I think some of that is playing out. I think, OG, you expressed a great point where it might just be a problem with this park. Doesn't have an nighttime show, which we just talked about with Epic, right? And it doesn't have the attraction roster, especially for the little ones that, well, a lot of people are going to be factoring into their vacation planning. The other thing too, Jared, to your point though, I mean, since the high of April, when you look at like Magic Kingdom wait times, for example, I mean, that just has gone down and down and down and down. So this is, I think, a wider resort problem from this summer, where just people are simply not showing up to these, to Walt Disney World in general, maybe even Universal as well. That might be macroeconomic related. There's a good possibility of that. I know that, Hugh Johnston, for example, was asked about this specifically at earnings calls, because a lot of people had questions about, are you necessarily going to see attrition at the theme park level because of some macroeconomic factors at play right there. They assured us that no, it's fine, it's all good, we're all good, we're gonna be a-okay. But what did we see from Disney? We saw that they opened a wide breadth of experiences right before the summertime. Why are they necessarily doing that? Because I think they know, in their modeling, their forecasting, that this was going to be kind of a down swing right here, and people, maybe necessarily not taken in by a Big Thunder Mountain redo or a Muppets, makeover for Rock and Roller Coaster, etc.
Yeah. No, when I think too, if like, and I agree with you, a lot of it could be sort of a delayed effect of higher gas prices just now hitting. Because both Universal and Disney, when asked that directly in their earnings calls, both said, we haven't seen any effect from it yet, but this could be a thing where you're starting to see this now as it gets to the summer. Gas prices are coming down, but a lot of times those can be lagging indicators where you don't have an immediate reaction to those things. So it's definitely possible. I think for Bluey itself, and I looked it up, I think Bluey is the #1 show in streaming, like all streaming. It's huge how big it is. I don't know if it is or not. I might be wrong on that.
Certainly #1 for Disney Plus. There's no question about that.
Without a doubt. It's definitely a top streaming show overall. But I think having experienced this, I do not think this is something that I think once the word's gotten out about this, if you have littles, this is not enough to keep you at least in Animal Kingdom all day long. Like when we went in, we got to Animal Kingdom about 11 o'clock that morning to go do this. We were seeing tons of families leave. All had Bluey shirts on, so I'd imagine they went to the show, leaving the park at like 11 o'clock, which means they probably got their rope drop, did it, and left.
Yeah.
And doing the show here, it's a strange show. Like our son, he's 6, he enjoyed it. Our daughter's 9, she was just like, it's kind of like a kindergarten classroom. Yeah. They play games. It's the kids go crazy, but it's odd back there. And I think the effort, you got to take the train, go back there and stuff like that. I think for a lot of people, maybe they'll go do this and they leave, or they just say, I don't know. And I agree with you, OG. If this was in Hollywood Studios, it would be a huge hit. I think you would see massive demand for this. And Magic Kingdom, you could say the same thing. Animal Kingdom, I think where this park is right now with everything going on, there's not a lot they can do here. Other than just try and do it through discounts, which is I think why you saw the Epcot and Animal Kingdom ticket package. Probably why you're going to see Universal as well, if they're facing the same stuff, why they may do more things to try and get more people into Epic Universe and those other parks for that reason. So I don't think this is a singular Disney issue, but we've seen since 2020, like the summers aren't as busy as they used to be. I mean, used to in the summertime, that's when people traveled. And you're kind of seeing people spread that out a bit more, traveling at different times. It's interesting. And I don't know in the short term, I don't know what you can really do with Animal Kingdom. I really don't. I think you're just, this is what it is for the time being.
And Space Ape 2000 brings up a great point, OG, to your point about Animal Kingdom. It's blazing hot. This is the hottest theme park of the 4 by far, no question. So even bring a little one to this park, it's not the easiest thing for a family to do, just on that basis alone.
Well, even my daughter and my mother-in-law, she was going to take my daughter to Animal Kingdom and do stuff tomorrow, and they're not going because it's supposed to be 96 degrees. Yeah. And they were just like, it's 96 degrees in Animal Kingdom is going to feel like 115. Like that part.
Man, it's so brutal in that park.
Brutal in the summer. And I think it's like, I think heat's a factor in all of this. I think when you have the choice to travel, like for us, like we're going to go and stay at Helios. We're going to go for the 4th of July, but we don't try to go to the parks very much in the summer because it is just hot. So I think that is a factor in this, but it's going to be interesting to see if this continues, even like when Disney gets these new things built. Do we still see this lagging in the summer like we have seen in the past couple of years?
To your point, Jared, I mean, it costs thousands and thousands and thousands to get to Florida to actually get into these theme parks and to enjoy these, family vacations. And so if it's like, okay, well, it's going to cost me thousands and thousands here, and it's going to cost me thousands and thousands, maybe in October or maybe December, well, that's what a lot of people are going to opt for. And, to Disney's point, they've also placed an enhanced emphasis on that when it comes to the parties and so forth. And sometimes it's like, hey, look, listen, this is going to be our annual trip, and we'll just go during this time, and we can see the festivities. We can buy in, after hours parties and so forth, and we'll just go ahead and hit it up all there. Versus, and what are we seeing for the summer? We're seeing discounts to try to get people to go, but even that's not necessarily moving the needle. Maybe in part because of that expense, and maybe also perhaps that, a lot of these additions from both of these resorts here, when it comes to Universal and Disney, we're still months, maybe even years away, depending on the project. So a lot of people might just be foregoing that in expectation of these new attractions coming online.
No, I agree. It's interesting because I think, when you see Hagrid's under 90 minutes, under an hour, I've never been in the park and actually seen that. Which, it's during the week, it's a weekday. I'm sure the weekends are still going to be busy. Like when you talk about it's easy to say the parks are empty, and I think it's all perspective of like, obviously, if you've been to Disney Universal, like it's never empty. But it's like if you're seeing some of these times, like typically my wife will say at Magic Kingdom, if Peter Pan is under 30 minutes, that's a slow day. You got certain rides you can look at it, some indicators there. But I think if they do have a down quarter, I think you're going to see both Disney and Universal point to gas prices. I think that is the easiest built-in thing they're going to say. Listen, travel has been impacted, and it probably is truth to that. But I think they're both going to come out and say that and say, it's a lagging effect of gas prices, and maybe this resolves, and maybe this just is a summer thing. But I think if gas prices continue to come down, you're not going to have this excuse in July and August. If it continues on this trend. And then it gets to the meat of the issue. And I'll be really curious about the earnings calls during these quarters of what they end up being. But it also makes you think, too, with Universal throwing up a nighttime show, maybe doing Open Celestial Park. You got Disney. We could talk about the bus stuff. This is when you start seeing places maybe try and find some extra revenue when they're looking at their attendance and the bookings and being like, ugh, okay, this is. And both of those destinations do not want to show a down quarter. Especially tomorrow, coming in off of a brand new thing here.
Oh, dude.
Well,
Disney can't.
I think out of the two, I agree. If Universal had a down quarter, that's not great, but I don't think there'd be near as much ire as if Disney did. And they're going to do everything they can to pull those levers to not have that be the case.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. And Kiki and Luca, this is another one of my analogies. He loves my analogies. So, but it's interesting because when you have a lot of big projects on the horizon, right? It's kind of like attendance and demand. It's kind of like an ocean wave, right? The wave kind of usually pulls back before it goes, right?
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing here. I think that like with all these projects that Disney World has, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years away, people are like, are we really going to spend thousands of dollars right now to go here now when I can wait a few years and get all the goodies, right?
Yep. Well, especially as expensive as it has gotten, it's a valid point. It's like, well, listen, if you're going and it's going to be that much money, and then with Universal as well, like they're in a different spot because they do have a brand new theme park.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I don't know if they're in the exact same spot as Disney, but I've said this for Disney, their answer to Epic Universe took so long that they're kind of at the whims here. Like there's not a lot they can do, and if they are in a situation where you do have people just being like, I'm just going to wait for these things to be done because I'm excited about these things, but why would I spend $8,000 on a vacation to then turn around and have to spend that money again? So that they'll just wait. And Universal had the same thing happen before Epic opened. I mean, that is the exact same thing happened there. So this is a real trend you see amongst fan bases of this waiting for these things before they come in, especially as expensive as they've gotten.
Well, Remy brings up an interesting point too. If Universal had a down quarter, it's worse because they just opened a new park. That's a valid point.
Yeah, it would be curious of how much and like how that was framed, because I think that is an issue. If you're looking at Universal, like they can't get more people in that park, and that is the big sticking point with that thing. I don't disagree that it wouldn't be a good thing. I'm talking about like the overall optics and like what people are going to react to. If they're going to react more to Disney, and we've had that discussion numerous times about people judging Universal versus Disney. Disney's the big dogs, so like they would just have more scrutiny, especially considering the parks are the biggest moneymaker for Disney. That is a definitely different thing versus Universal.
Right. It's when you're looking at like Comcast, for example, right? How much does the Universal theme park division make up of its portfolio? Right? I mean, I think it's still sub 20%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it necessarily makes up the majority of their income. Versus with Disney parks, that's like anywhere between 40 to 6% has been for the last 10 years. So when you have a down quarter within the theme park division, I mean, we saw that I think like 2 years ago now, actually. Yeah, I think it was maybe 2024. The stock price took a big hit. I mean, a big one, because it was like, whoa, hang on a second. That's where the money's coming in order to fuel a lot of these projects, especially when it comes to like Mandalorian and Grogu, for example, right? You got to offset those costs to some extent, and maybe necessarily do that with the theme parks or maybe your other divisions and so forth. But because the theme parks make up such a large chunk of their overall, not just revenue but profit mainly, that's a big time thing. Remember, Josh Giamaro is in that position right now, not Dana Walton. Okay, that's the emphasis they're placing on parks. And you just can't have that happen, especially, if it's going to be his first full quarter on the job, potentially.
Yeah. And we've seen resilience from Disney parks, though. They've had down quarters on attendance, but they still have record-breaking revenues. And so, like I've said, like that strategy has worked, and it works until it doesn't work. And I'm not saying it's not going to work this quarter, next quarter, anything of that nature, but it's just interesting of what's going on here. And I think if I had to guess, I think Disney was really counting on more of a boom for Animal Kingdom with Bluey coming online. Yeah. And I do think this show, after seeing it, it's not that it's bad. I just think it's a mismatch of what people expect out of this. Like not having a meet and greet as part of this, like the way the show, it's very odd type of show. I've never seen Disney do a show quite like this. I think it gets tweaked. If I were to guess, maybe it moves from Animal Kingdom at some point in the future, but I think they're going to try and make this work. But
do you think this, maybe the social media, sharing of this got the word out maybe a little bit quicker than Disney was expecting, that maybe this was maybe not necessarily worth an admission price to Animal Kingdom? Is that maybe possible?
It's possible, because I think you have the pros and cons of social media. Is if it's something hit and that catches on and the hype grows, and then you have the downside of that, which is that people report on this. And I mean, I've seen some people, I haven't heard anybody say it's terrible. Like if you have little kids, like they'll enjoy this, but I haven't seen anybody really be like, this was an amazing thing. And I can attest to that. Like it's fine for what it is. It's cute, but you literally, when you're in line, you see the whole show like twice. So I did see a lot of families get out of line while waiting for the show. Probably while we were in line, I'd probably say like 4 or 5 families got out of line. And I don't know why. Maybe they already saw it. Maybe the kids were restless, but it's just a weird experience here. And I think it needs, especially something as big as Bluey, I would expect them to have something a little bit more involved, or maybe more like a show. Like you talk about Vash putting this in like the Tree of Life. I think that would make a ton of sense, but I don't see them doing that anytime soon. They just premiered Zootopia.
No, it's Zootopia now.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing too. I haven't been to the Bluey experience yet. I last time I was at Disney World was like 3 years ago with Mr. Vash Sky. But like, I will say this, as crazy as it looks, I think they should have had Advil sponsor this attraction. It seems like a huge headache with all those little kids.
It's very loud in there. My wife used to be a teacher, and she was like, "This is just like a kindergarten classroom. Like it's just." And like again, the little kids, they're having fun. They're playing games, and the cool kids summer stuff. Like it's kind of cool. Like the hotel we stayed at, they gave us some goodies and stuff like that. So I don't know how much that's moving the needle for them or anything like that, but I do like the cool kids summer. I like having more stuff for kids. It's just this, like you see here, this space, it's just odd. Like they need a wall up. They need to do something. They can definitely tweak this to make it better, which I imagine they might. I will say they did send us 2 different surveys about the Bluey show that like almost immediately in Animal Kingdom. So they're definitely looking for feedback on this show. But yeah, I think you're going to have different perspectives on this from adults to kids. And even like in the kids range, again, our daughter was like, like she was just like, this is nuts. And then our son was like super into it. So I'd say for this show, if you're 7 and under, maybe 6 and under, the kids will really like it. If they're older than that, they're probably not going to get as much out of this for the most part, if I were to guess there. But we do have a couple of super chats here. We have O2RR for a 5. Thank you, O2RR. Says, any mention of Animal Kingdom, I enjoy singing. Look, there's a lion. Oh my gosh, you actually do see Mufasa and Sarabi on the safari ride after all. Was that a song?
Yeah, so that is referring to, apparently there was a comedian out there that was suggesting that the opening line to Circle of Life, how it's in Swahili, look, there's a lion. Oh my gosh. That was the
sued.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit actually surrounding that, which was kind of crazy. I was going to say, in terms of Swahili, OG, you might call this a zoo, but I remember back in the day when they actually said, not a zoo. They make a new word, which is like something you would never do today. Go ahead.
Which is funny because I've said that about Animal Kingdom. I've been open. It's not my favorite park. I don't hate it, but it's not a park that like we maybe go 2 or 3 times a year. Like it's just not something. It may change when the new stuff opens. But my wife did what was it? One of those expedition things you do. She did with a friend of hers, and they literally told them, that it is designated as a zoo. Animal Kingdom is designated officially as a zoo. So when they say it's not a zoo, it's actually a zoo.
Yeah.
With ride.
It
It
has all the facilities.
I mean, it really does.
But you know what, though? I'll say this. At least it doesn't smell as bad as SeaWorld. I'll say that.
No,
that's a good point.
I don't like SeaWorld. I've been there 3 times, and I know some people like it. It's not for me. Maybe I've heard the Halloween stuff's pretty good. I haven't checked that out, but as a whole, I can't say I've been a huge fan of SeaWorld. But we do have a 2 here from Space Dave again. Thank you, Space Dave. It says, Diz using fans as an ATM for 15 years hasn't helped.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm trying to think what that means.
Yeah, Disney using fans.
I was thinking like blowing yourself off like it's hot. Yeah. No, I mean, that is something too, like, and I've said many times, like you were talking about with Epic opening, people are like, oh, it's a Disney killer. I'm like, it's not a Disney killer. Like, Disney's attendance isn't going to fall off a cliff because of Epic Universe, but it's a cumulative thing. You've got more competition, higher prices for things, Disney, charging more, and you throw in new things. So when you do have a higher price thing, like we have talked about, it doesn't lend itself to going more on a whim or when you really are waiting for these things. So I think that is part of this conversation is with these higher prices, there is downsides to that. And I've even said that could affect them at some point. And I would be very curious if they did have a down quarter, what would they do? Or maybe 2 down quarters. Like, I'm not talking 10%. Maybe their revenue's down 1% or 2, things like that. But again, given the theme parks make the most money for them, what levers do they pull? I think that's probably when they do that dynamic pricing that Hugh Johnson has talked about for probably more than a year now.
Yeah.
I think they implement. That is probably when you would see that come online, because that would make them more money almost immediately, the way they would set that up.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. Yeah, we'll see what levers they pull, or whatever, because they love those levers.
I'm gonna call it the Vash dance, the lever pull. Just
they love
and to be fair, both parks, both destinations have levers to pull.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have things that they can do to help with this stuff and everything like that. It's just that part gets very curious to me, as much money is being spent right now for both these destinations. It's be very interesting. And I think and I do agree with Remy D, like Epic had record-breaking quarters ever since they've been on the books. It's not going to be a great look if the first quarter full circle comes around and it's not higher still. Like, it's not going to be a good look, but I still think from a media standpoint, if you had Universal and Disney have down quarters, Disney's going to get all that press.
Now, Space Dave says here they are addicted to price increases. They can't stop.
Nothing can stop us now.
There you go, Space Dave.
Fantastic.
I mean, that was what was that Wall Street Journal article? They said that somebody inside of Disney said they were addicted to price hikes. Like, that was the interesting verbiage they had used about that. So they actually, at least somebody at Disney, unknown person, reportedly did say that. But we do have another 5 here from Ill Magic. Thank you, Ill Magic. Said, would this be the best time to bring the Tomb Raider ride back? Probably not.
What was that, King's Island?
Yeah.
It was back. That's such an interesting attraction when you look at its history.
I don't think Tomb Raider is. I think the best days of Tomb Raider are probably behind it at this point. I think the peak you probably would have had whenever Angelina Jolie had those movies going on. But I think of all the video game franchises you could use, I don't think you would be using Tomb Raider at this point, but maybe somebody will.
Well, I know one thing. If it was a Disney movie, they'd put a trench coat on her. So
that's true.
They basically have done that in the games.
The games have tried. The games have, they put a trench coat, at least metaphorically on her face. That's for sure.
What do they call it? A proverbial.
Proverbial,
whatever. Trench coat. In a way, they have. You're not wrong there, but that we'll see how that plays out. But I just thought it interesting because my wife sent that to me, and I looked around a little bit, and I was granted it's a Tuesday and Monday, during the summer. We're gonna be there on the 3rd and 4th at Disney, so I'm gonna be really curious. The last time we were there for the 4th of July was on the 3rd. It wasn't that busy, but I'm wondering maybe the 250th, maybe it's a little bit busier, but we'll see. We'll see how this all shakes out. Of course, we'll talk about it on here when they do that. But I think that is all the topics we have for this fine evening, and I will move this off here. But before we get out of here, first I just want to say thank you everybody in the chat. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for the super chats and the interaction. We had Il Magic drop a few super chats. We had Kiki and Luca with some gifted memberships, Juliet, O2RR, Space Dave. So thank you guys very, very much. Everybody just participate in the chat. Absolutely love it. Before we get out of here, though, where can everybody find you, fine gentlemen? Orange Go 55. Thank you as always for being here, good sir. And where can they find you and your virtual wearers on the internet?
Well, thank you guys, Vash, Jared. Always a pleasure talking shop with you two gentlemen. Everybody in the chat, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening. Yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking theme park studio, all that good stuff. And you can find me on Instagram, Orange Grove 55, and you can also find me on X, Orange Grove 55. Most of my content is
West Side.
California based, but we do also dive into the Florida stuff as well. So check it out. Mr. Vash Sky, I'll let you take it from here, bro.
I almost did a spit take, by the way. When you said that, I was that close to doing it. I was not expecting West Side out of that. So sorry. I didn't want to get all over the screen of my computer. Go on, Vash.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. No, it's by surprise as well. But thank you so much, OG and Jared, for hosting me here on Theme Park. And awesome stuff, indeed. Hopefully the chats, the various chats, got as much out of it as I did. You guys did. So everybody did. So fantastic stuff right there. Tomorrow it's going to be on Vash Sky ParkCast 2 p.m. Following that Park Place, we're going to be talking about Josh's China headache. Ooh, no good. No good. Especially when you look at the reports coming out of Puck and so forth. Oh, those tensions flare up once again, unfortunately. And at around the time that Shanghai Disneyland is celebrating its 10th annual with a bunch of updates there as well. Should be a pretty good discussion. And, of course, going to be talking about just a little bit more the transportation restrictions going on at Walt Disney World and how the dynamic of Walt Disney World and the culture there by managers is changing. Should be some awesome stuff. That's going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. We have a show every single Thursday as well at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And Fashion Vixen, we just covered a whole bunch of stuff related to the steampunk history within Disney theme parks. Very, very cool. We went over Discovery Bay and Discovery Land, and it was a whole lot of fun. So if you're a member, if you're a Sky Watcher, you can go ahead and get access to that as well. We have over 10 episodes. Pretty good stuff. But thank you so much, Jared and OG, for having me on.
Oh, beautiful. So it sounds so good. No, thank you guys. I love listen. One of the things I actually look forward to, like, these live streams are just fun. Like it's you just get here and talk with your buddies about this stuff that we probably would be talking about in a group chat anyway. So it's a fun thing to do, and the chat makes it even better. So it's a fun time here. But if you're watching this not on Capture the Magic, you can find me at Cap the Magic. I do daily videos, very similar to OG, but it's on the East Coast side. And then if you do want that more like podcast, in-depth stuff about Universal Orlando, Walt Disney World, my wife and I have a podcast, Capture the Magic podcast here as well at CTM Podcast on YouTube, where we have hour-long episodes twice a week, and then a bunch of show clips up there. So you can go check that out. If you want to know the best, individual reviews of certain things and everything like that, you can go check that out over there. And well, thank you, JJ. That's very nice. Listen, it's better when other people say it and not yourself necessarily, but no, it's not. And of course, go check out Theme Park Conductor as well. All these guys, at least on my end, it'll be in the description on this live stream. But that'll do it for tonight. So everybody have a great rest of your week. Enjoy yourself. Stay cool if you're in Florida. It's going to be like 96, almost 100 degrees in Florida. So it's going to be, it's going to be really. I had to switch my workouts to the morning because I went outside my garage yesterday at like 11 o'clock and I was like, no, this is too hot. So it's getting a little warm out there. So stay cool. And we will see you guys on the next one. Everyone have a nice evening and talk to you later. Bye.
Peace.
West